Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, as we are in our final day of the VCS English split here. It's kind of astonishing 5 weeks ago that we just kicked things off for the very first time in one of I think the first ever winter split in all of professional League of Legends. Yet here we are at the end of the regular season with only 2 games remaining, and somehow and in some way, in typical VCS fashion, everything stays relevant to the last possible minute. So we've got some exciting games for you here today. My name's 𝘀𝗶𝗹𝗀. I'll be hosting for you few fine folks out there. And alongside me, 𝘀𝗀cie𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀𝗀. 𝘀𝗀 and him, I don't think we've actually worked together for an extremely long time. So I guess I'll start with you. Talk to me about VCS, I guess, the entirety of the split, because we've had 5 full weeks of games that we've been able to jam pack in a very limited time.
So, funnily enough, we are both on the VCS broadcast, but almost never together. So I'm very excited today to have you host me. I almost never get to do the desk these days. But yeah, I'm very happy to be able to do it on a Friday. And it's the last day of the split. We still get to decide quite a lot of things today. So even more exciting in that prospect.
𝘀𝗀cie, what about you? How are you feeling about this VCS split as a whole as we come into the final day of the regular season?
I mean, it has been overall, I would say, in the bigger picture, more or less what we expected. I mean, there of course have been some surprises to the positive end, some surprises to the negative end as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see the last day of the VCS. And there's still something to decide, as you were just now teased. Because technically, I mean, there's still one last playoff spot to grab. I mean, there's very likely will be one certain team, but nothing is for certain. This is something we always need to keep in mind, especially in the esports scene.
And really quickly, before we get into today's games, I think it's worthwhile to give a final parting thought to a lot of the teams that have actually decided, even some of those going into playoffs. So before we kick off, it'd be nice to see the standings just so we have a chance to look at some of the teams as we get to talk over them a little bit. Let's start with Flash, because coming into the split, our expectations for Flash were basically nothing, right? Where did you guys expect this team to end up? I suppose we'll start with 𝘀𝗀 here. How did you see the team ending up in the position where they were at? And I guess, are you surprised that they were able to finally get their first win, even if it was against SPTC?
So, coming into the split, I think I power ranked them last place. I believe so.
I think just about everybody did.
Yeah, it didn't come as a big surprise that they ended up where they ended up, but the way it transpired was maybe a little bit confusing. Because so before the split started, we had heard 𝘀𝗀 talk to us on Discord, right? And he sounded pretty down on his team, and I was worried, but I also thought maybe he's trolling us. Who knows? Then we saw the first half, and it was very clear, no, he actually wasn't trolling us. But yeah, I'm very happy with the second half because they actually found some ways to be competitive. For some of the first few series, they actually looked dead. They basically didn't even put up a real fight. The enemy team had a free game, and everyone was just looking at their schedule and going, oh, it's Flash, nice, that's a free 2-0. But now the last, let's say 2-3 weeks, they actually showed some signs of life. They showed some aggressive early games. They found a roster that worked and got better and better. The 𝘀𝗀cie iteration actually looked like a competitive VCS team. Not a top-tier VCS team, and no one expected that, but still a VCS team and not a VCSB team. So I'm very happy with where they ended, not in terms of standing, because 113 is horrible, but in terms of just what they showed on the Rift.
They certainly did. I mean, I never really doubted them. I was delusional enough to not put them in last place initially. But I mean, just gotta say, the last few weeks they had like found some sort of identity. They definitely had an identity crisis, I would say, in the middle, where they had like some roster shakeups in the mid lane, especially. Also, 𝘀𝗀 looking surprisingly good on some mid lane champions. As yesterday, he was popping off on the Vex and also doing well on the Orianna in the second half of the other game that you see with SPTC in. And yeah, I mean, Team Flash overall, I mean, 113 is not a standing that they are probably happy about, and they probably, as you were just not that, I mean, toward the end, they look better than the scoreline they had, at least. I mean, 113 is, yeah, it's better than 014, but they actually maybe even deserved a little bit better.
I don't think that's unreasonable given the way that they ended their split and how eventually the iterations started coming together. I want to take the opposite look at another team who actually ended up in the second to last place spot at the very last moment because of their loss, which is SPTC. At one point, this was a team who was actually jockeying for a playoff spot alongside 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝘀, alongside BTS, and they've just completely fallen to the wayside. Were it not for the fact that they 2-0'd 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝘀, this team would not have been relevant in the slightest over the course of this split, because now they've cost Saigon a guaranteed spot or an attempted spot into playoffs. And even despite their victories, they were unfortunately still falling into 7th place. So what happened? Because they started off as competitors, but they looked lost, and they looked kind of as like the patch rolled through. They had some rough goes about it. Yeah. So 𝘀𝗀cie, what happened to this team, and I guess what do you see this future looking like when we hit spring?
I mean, it's pretty rough for them. I mean, they didn't really have a real mid laner for most part of the split. I mean, we have seen Artifact like once, and then we kind of have seen why he didn't play anymore later on. Apparently, it was his choice, and he got kind of denied by unfortunate circumstances, of course, with him having the virus and then not being able to practice at first. And having no real mid laner, I gotta say, Hero played fine for what he was, but he still wasn't the real mid laner, right? I mean, he almost played top champions. Then he had like a Wise game, a Silas game, one Syndra game, and on all of those champions, he didn't look good. So it was kind of unfortunate. They were a little bit more predictable in the draft, and that was unfortunately hindering him, especially later on, where the big mages were so strong, with Victor being strong, with Kassadin maybe being strong, and it kind of like got left him with a gaping hole in the mid lane, and unfortunately, Hero couldn't quite fill it.
Yeah, and I would also like to add that Penguin's performance sadly dropped from being our #1 play in week 1, right? We gave him play of the week and he looked amazing, to not really doing anything for the whole rest of the split. And then you have a struggling mid laner that's not even a mid laner, doesn't play the correct champions, is laning fine, but can't really impact the game, and have a jungler who's not synergizing with the mid laner and doesn't actually execute his own individual plays anymore. And suddenly, even if your top lane is solid, even if your bot lane is decent in lane, even beat Artemis and 𝘀𝗀, I always go back to that game because that was very impressive from 𝘀𝗀, and of course CBL as well. But yeah, in the end, if your mid jungle just is not functioning correctly, you lose 0-2 to Flash in the end.
It ended up kind of tragically for SBTC. They can at least say that they left a mark on this split. Next split becomes a lot more interesting. Hopefully, they can figure out the mid lane situation. They can figure out the meta a bit more. Come back and be, not just a bunch of chickens, but super big time chickens, as we expect them to be. And finally, we get a chance to talk, or I guess not finally, because we got one more team after this. Team Secret, as opposed to the previous two, their first half was disastrous. They looked lost completely. The Z game still indicative of the performance of the entire team on the split. But they hit second half. They hit the new patch. They hit 𝘂𝗀. And yes, their performance didn't necessarily kind of show it on the stat sheet. They did end up doubling their wins. They ended up in the 6th place spot as opposed to the 7th place spot. And their ceiling looked a lot higher. So talk to me about, specifically, I guess here's the distillation of my question. Is this team somebody that we can expect in spring to come back after a little bit of development and look like a playoff team? Or do they still have a lot of kind of room to grow or changes to make to really get to that point?
Playoffs is such a huge thing to go for. Playoffs are so hard to reach in VCS, right? 4 teams. It's a really cutthroat competition. I think they can be more competitive. I think what I liked about Team Secret is their aggression overall. Their rookies not holding back. 𝘂𝗀 came in and really changed the way the team played the early game for the most part. And they were able in the end to not only beat Flash, but also get 2 more series. And that's important to look at, because if you only beat Flash, and especially the Flash of the early parts of the split, you basically beat no one. But in the end, they actually came up with some good game plans and were a team to be feared. Teams couldn't overlook Team Secret anymore. So I definitely think they're going to be aiming for maybe the 5th or 6th spot in the spring split.
I would echo with that statement, definitely. I mean, getting players will, of course, be very hopeful for them, but just gotta say, I mean, there's only 4 spots, as you just said, and who do you really take out of the current top teams there that you get into playoffs? It's kind of rough in that department for them, and gotta say, though, they found that they played towards. They bet both SBTC and 𝘀𝗀ie in the second half of the split, and yeah, this is looking like they can maybe like contest for 5th or 6th spot at least, and yeah, I mean, 7th place is what they are in right now, but there's definitely room to grow for this team.
And I guess as this broadcast continues to develop, hopefully we'll get a chance to circle back to our playoff teams in 𝘀WWE, 𝘀𝗻, and 𝘀𝗏. But specifically today, we'll get a chance to talk about 𝘀WWE, thankfully, a little bit later. But I actually want to come back to what happens today, because we talked about the importance that's going to come about. 𝘀𝗻 and 𝘀𝗏 play in our first series today. 𝘀𝗏 is playing. 𝘀𝗏 is shooting for their first undefeated split. I can't say whether or not it's actually happened yet. I'm assuming 𝘀𝗻 has never made it happen as a complete 100%, undefeated regular season. 𝘀𝗏 usually don't have this kind of a run in the second half, which is rather impressive. And they're playing up against VCS, who, with a win, are able to make a very important thing happen, which is their taking of the 4th place playoff spot after going and getting 2nd place in winter promotion, nearly getting relegated from the league. So tell me about today's game, and specifically, let's start with BTS. 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀, they had this miraculous turnaround. Where exactly was their growth at that made them into what looks like to be our 4th playoff team?
I mean, we expected 𝘀𝗀 and 𝘀𝗏 mostly to be decent, also Armenia, but I was really like being surprised by the fact that they really found their identity. Also, like 𝘁𝗀, he had a really very rough start, I would say. Towards the end, he was still not like a carry top laner, but he was at least like doing his job and finding his way into the team fights with the team, going for decent roams or TP plays with his team, and just while still being not on Renekton duty, he was still doing a fine job, I would say. And yeah. Also, just gonna add today, BTS just needs to try out this series very hard, because there still is the technical possibility that 𝘀𝗀 might just drop the series to 𝘂𝗏𝗶𝗀, and that could still eliminate them from playoffs before playoffs even started.
Yeah, indeed. And 𝘀𝗏, you could say, has more to play for, but I feel like 𝘀𝗏 is not going to hold back today either. The one thing I really like about 𝘀𝗏 as a team in the last 2 weeks is just how they've come together and found an identity that works for them. We used to know them as a late game team. We used to know them as the team with the worst early game stats in the league. They've changed this massively. They've worked on the early game. All of their players have gotten so much more aggressive. 𝘁𝗀 has fit in nicely in the top lane. But more importantly, they've figured out a draft that works for them. They know exactly how to play this. It's the Renekton, Xin Zhao, or Lee Sin plus 𝘁𝗏𝗃 bot lane. Sometimes you go 𝘁𝗏 instead. So very aggressive, dive-heavy, short-range composition, and they know how to accelerate the game to get to the mid game ahead. Because in the late game, this team composition shouldn't work, but because they know how to execute this, they actually look so much better than they did before. And I'm really impressed seeing a team outside of the players competition, or like we thought they would be outside of the players competition, stepping up, finding an identity, and actually overtaking some of the better teams as well.
So now coming into today's games, especially in our first series of the day between 𝘀𝗏, the 𝘀𝗏, and 𝘀𝗏, I being an analyst, I know one of my least favorite things is being pitted against my fellow desk members, but here I'm going to force both of you to do that because I don't have to do it today. So I have a random number generator that's in front of me right now, and 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀 luckily got the first roll, so Mr. 𝘀𝗀, you'll have a Herculean task most likely in front of you. 𝘀𝗀𝗃, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to 𝘀𝗀. Pick a team and tell me how it is that they win today. 𝘀𝗀, you'll do the other.
For the first series, I'm picking 𝘀𝗏. They definitely still have a lot to play for. Yeah, I mean, they want the perfect split. I think no VCS team has ever done it, and they actually just need to reward themselves. And they also have a very decent shot today to just demoralize versus 𝘀𝗏 completely, because they are likely going to be their playoffs opponent later on in the playoffs. And yeah, I mean, you can just look at basically any lane and see where 𝘀𝗏 is going with this. I mean, the weakness as a team arguably has would be 𝘁, but on the other side, there's 𝘁𝗀, who still does his job, of course. But I would never expect I only believe it when I see that 𝘁𝗀 just takes over games so single-handedly from the top lane, and just also 𝘀𝗏 playing much around the top lane. So I really don't see them punishing 𝘁 much up there in the top lane. Maybe if pause plays, there's a chance of Mr. 𝘀𝗏, but unless he's playing, I think Mr. 𝘀𝗏 has very grim chances to win the series here.
Okay, so I see 3 things that need to happen for 𝘀𝗏, the 𝘀𝗏 today to dominate 𝘀𝗏. First of all, their compositions, they have to get their compositions. If 𝘀𝗏 doesn't punish or ban away some of their key champions, Renekton comes to mind, the Xin Zhao or Lee Sin, if you get rid of both of these champions, suddenly a lot of agency is gone for 𝘀𝗏. So and of course the aggressive ADC. So if they get their compositions, they already have a much better chance because they know how to play them. They know how to dive. They need to play through bot lane, dive Artemis over and over again, ignore the top side, and try to put 𝘀cie on a matchup where you can control the mid lane. Even though 𝘀𝗀 might outscale. So just disregard the late game completely and go full all in the early game bot lane. That's number one. And then we have 2 player matchups that need to happen as well, that need to go into BTS's favor. One is 𝘀𝗀. 𝘀𝗀 has to outperform Artemis today if they want to win. And 𝘀𝗀 has to outperform 𝘂o. Both of these players, I feel like they're all very similar players, and it's just Cerberus with the better players on average, or just generally, 𝘂o is better than 𝘀𝗀, and Artemis, of course, is better than 𝘀𝗀. But if today's the day where 𝘀𝗀 and 𝘀𝗀 step up and actually outperform their counterparts, I think it's possible for them to take over the series and just dominate from ADC and jungle position, play their aggressive compositions, and dive Artemis, kill him over and over again, and offset Cerberus's usual early game balance.
So as we kick off into draft, preparing something like that, I kind of want to distill down a little bit of your thoughts of the laning phases. We'll pick into bands in the first couple of picks, most likely here in a second. But I'll just, I guess, start into this because I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have of matchups that you're excited to see today. Actually, we're just into the 2-band phase. So my thought coming into this, and you can both give your own thoughts about whether you agree or disagree what matchups you are excited for, but the one I'm going to give to both of you is actually going to be the mid lane matchup, which I think is important. 𝘀𝗀 is somebody that has stepped up this split, and I think has taken not a definitive hold, but a hold on the #1 position in the mid lane over top of 𝘁ci. And anybody else that would come about. But then also, you're considering 𝘀𝗀 step up this split. Tell me matchups you're excited for as we kick things off with Victor first overall, but kind of in the background, I'll let you guys pontificate on the draft and the matchups you should be expecting to be excited about.
I already think the Victor... Yeah, go. Sorry.
Yeah, but considering that they left Victor open on blue side, and 𝘀𝗀 is like the best Victor of the league, they kind of threw the curveball already to BTS there, and we already know that Victor is great, that 𝘀𝗀 is great on the Victor, but now I'm really looking forward to see what he can do to punish this pick, because they must have a plan if they leave this pick open.
Yeah, and Cerberus seems to be actually aiming to go 𝘁's composition against 𝘁, which is interesting to see. If they pick away the Lee Sin here, would be a very 𝘁 composition with 𝘀𝗀 on Ryze and 𝘀𝗀 on the Lee Sin. There we go. 𝘂o, also a very good Lee Sin player, of course. But in terms of matchups, I'm an ADC main. I love both of these players. I think these are the 2 best ADCs in the league, so I just want to see ADC action. Artemis against 𝘀𝗀, hopefully on 2 very different ADCs. I would like to see something like late game hyper carry for Artemis, and early game dominating or mid game dominating mid game 𝘁𝗄 kind of champion for 𝘀𝗀.
Quick thing, I'm gonna bet $5 against both of you that this ends up being an Alistar pick because we see Leona. Right now it's an Echo Hover. I will take both of you on that action immediately. Either one of you two can just say yes.
I will never bet against one of you. You're not betting me on that bet. No.
You just can't bet against. There it is. It's just that simple. I would have made $10 real easy. I can't pull the wool over the eyes of our fine analysts because they know there's 2 things that are inevitable, or I guess 3 things: death taxes and VCS Alistar for some reason.
There has been a handshake, so you're not getting any money. You're getting scammed, man. Either way, of course, Alistar coming out into Leona, and I actually don't hate it, which might be surprising to you, because Alistar to Leona is good. I don't think they will get Aphelios anyway, so the Alistar Aphelios lane, which I kind of dislike, is not happening here. I wonder if Jinx has been banned, because the overlay isn't showing a Jinx ban, but I also do not buy the fact that Cerberus might have missed a ban in the first rotation. Maybe it is actually some 5,000 IQ play from them that actually leave open a ban on wet side to just have it out of the way, but I cannot really see that. I mean, they would have picked the Jinx themselves by now, I would think, and I think the Jinx is gone. Maybe we see the Twitch again, which is something I would very, very be welcome to see again.
I think Twitch is a very, very bad idea into 𝘁's usual way of playing the game, to just double down onto the bot lane, just dive them over and over again. Twitch is probably one of the least stable bot laners if you want to go for a weak side. So I think 𝘁 is definitely building a typical 𝘁 composition. 𝘁𝗄 is open, that could be an option. So the 𝘁𝗄, Leona, and then round out with whatever 𝘁𝗀 is playing. 𝘁𝗀? So yeah, we are playing on live, so there is the possibility that this is still Ryuk and he just has a different name on life, but it's most likely a different player.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, which I didn't expect, so I have no idea what top lane is going to do for us today.
It's a backup. I think they used him very early in the split and tried it against Ryuk. Ryuk has not had the greatest laning stats, but as a fighter, he's got to have some of the most disgusting flanks that we've seen on the Renekton the majority of the split. Also, I want to thank 𝘀𝗋 for his time on the desk, but disrespecting Twitch gets him kicked out. It might be. That might be the pinch. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, it might actually be top lane Victor. This could be a swap to make top lane Victor a thing, because they knew Cerberus, you can't give Cerberus Victor. Cerberus ran away with so many games on Victor, and 𝘀𝗀 didn't punish it, but then showed his top lane Victor in different series, so they definitely know that it's an important draft resource to be able to pick the Victor away. So I'm not sure if this Victor is gonna go into the mid lane. But
And I
we
still
have
wouldn't
here...
be sure if the Jace gets knocked down, I'm still not sure actually. You can double flex those two, so it would
Exactly.
maybe change it up that Victor top lane one trick pony they picked up for this one series, so they could have the takeaway against Yado's Victor, but let's be real, I think that's not what's happening here. I still think with the Jace locked in, it's likely Jace top Victor mid, but I'm not 100% sure actually. Speaking of the bot lane I hated, 𝘀𝗻𝗄's 𝘀𝗃 got stuck in. And considering the Twitch pick I addressed earlier, it also looked rough in the draft before for Artemis, and he still smashed the Caitlyn lane apparently for whatever reason, because one gank was enough to set him off. So I still would have loved the Twitch, not maybe into this competition in particular, because against 𝘁𝗃𝗃, it would have been rough. Now 𝑊ukong gets taken though, and 𝑊ukong is great into Jace, so yeah, maybe Pan is now in position to step up here.
Yeah, 𝘀𝗀 on Jhin is something I despise, not only because I don't like Jhin, but also because Sky has a much lower win rate, at least in the last few weeks, when they put 𝘀𝗀 on a non-carry like Jhin. So I don't really know why you want to try this again. There's a lot of damage in the composition, so just looking at the composition without the name tags, the Jhin is fine. Because you have Victor as your main carry, you have Jace to add so much damage. I just don't see Sky as a team with their star AD carry performing well in team fights without... The last time we saw this actually was 𝘀𝗀 on Bryce as the main carry against SPTC, and they lost the game in the late game. It was just Caitlyn V9 from 𝘀𝗀, so let's see if they learned something. I'm really iffy on this draft from Sky. I think they missed the mark in the end.
Now, just to postulate here a little bit, obviously 𝘂𝗻's on a champion that's a lot different from what we've seen Ryuk on the majority of the split. We haven't seen Ryuk really pop off. He's a lot more of that team fighter and focusing on that team fighting type style. But they do have a lot of ability to play towards top lane. I mean, Victor Rise is relatively boring. The Jhin Leona should be fine. I know 𝘀𝗀cie will talk about the level 1 being just the most horrid, atrocious thing in the world for that bottom side for Cerberus. And Artemis and 𝘁𝗀𝗃 will still somehow win it with a solo kill. That's typical VCS fashion. So our attention actually gets drawn immediately to top lane with the counter matchup from Pun and the damage coming in from 𝘂𝗻. Let's get some last thoughts from you two gentlemen and who wins our first series or first game, I guess, of the series today.
I want to be like a little bit of an 𝘀𝗀's advocate here and defend the Jhin pick a little bit, because 𝘂𝗋 certainly won't do that. Jhin is actually decent against 𝘀𝗃's in the laning phase. You actually can do something level 1 as well, which of course helps against their 𝘂𝗋's 𝘀𝗃 lane, which I would have addressed if Rebel just didn't do it. And I think 𝘀𝗀, of course, on the 𝘀𝗃, on the Jhin, sorry. I don't like it in the later stage of the game either, by the way, because, I mean, 𝘀𝗀 is your best player. You should pick towards him and put him on something that has great DPS potential. Jhin just doesn't have it, so I'm really looking forward to see if they can play towards top side this time on the side of BTS and maybe snowball the Jace pick a little bit, or maybe get a few early tackles onto the Victor so he can gloriously evolve into the late game here. But I'm still really sold onto Cerberus draft overall. I just don't like the Wise into Victor that much, because it doesn't really say to me, yeah, this Wise will smash the Victor here. But I really like 𝑊ukong into Jace, and of course the individual discrepancy is also there, so I would take Cerberus for the series at this game.
So for the draft, I think Cerberus' draft is atrocious. They have drafted bad lanes, they have drafted bad matchups. It's a really bad draft, but it's Cerberus. And I think this is actually a very cocky draft, because they're telling BTS, well, we are going to draft 3 losing lanes, but we're good enough to just out teamfight you. Because when this draft gets into the teamfight stage, suddenly there's a lot to work with. But they are outranged in mid lane. Victor could just 1v9 this game if he plays well, because he outranges and outcontrols everything. Pan yeah, it's a decent matchup, especially if you get a kill or something, but usually you still fall behind in the laning phase, and 𝘀 needs to show us they can withstand the Jace pressure. So I feel like Cerberus has drafted just a very cocky composition. They want to cement themselves as the #1 team, which is fair enough. They're 13-0, so all power to them, but I think this is not a draft we would see in the playoffs.
Did you just call Wukong into Jace a bad matchup?
I mean, it is kind of for the first few minutes. It does punish him later on, but in the first few minutes, Jace still definitely wins against Wukong. So I don't think it's like the counter matchup #1 where Jace can't do anything.
All right. I mean, it's like I said, I feel like we're in the very early stages going to be paying a lot of attention to what is 𝘁𝗰 versus 𝘀, just because #1 we're getting a new top laner for BTS out of what seems like absolutely nowhere. Maybe as a tactic of carrying potential, maybe as a tactic of draft potential, because they've literally B1 Renekton pretty much every single opportunity they've had, and that that would have been picked up by Cerberus very easily in their coaching staff. And on the other side, like you always said, I'm not a big fan of a composition that does very little in the early stages of the game, especially against 𝘀𝗏𝗏. They're putting a bunch into ego, and they're trying to set up a team fight. We have some parting moments here before the game actually starts, because they've really liked it at the VCS to kind of poke around. So I guess both teams. Where does BTS's map break if they're able to actually win against Cerberus in the early phases? Who do you think it is? Do you think it is 𝘁𝗎 and �elio in the bot lane? Do you think it's 𝘀𝗏𝗏? Do you think they really have to put attention to 𝘁𝗰? Who is it that they need to get ahead very quickly to really kind of topple over what Cerberus has established here?
I think this time it would maybe be the 𝘁 Leona bot lane this time, actually, because you really want to throw Artemis off so he doesn't just get to scale here. But you could also just take the invitation and pick the top lane here, because the Wukong will just win the 1v1 if he just gets a free lane here, which is of course hard against the Jace, who can abuse his range advantage a little bit in the first few levels, as you were just now addressed. But I actually want them to just smash Artemis and bully him out of the early game, so the 𝘁 actually gets accelerated. And I don't see them winning it late game with the 𝘁, so better do it early.
Yeah, I think it's all about top lane. I think 𝘀𝗏𝗏, maybe even with 𝘀𝗏𝗏, if 𝘀𝗏𝗏 can get some nice early trades in, they have to dive the Wukong early. Wukong can actually be dived pretty easily, especially with Jace stacking some waves in the early game and controlling the wave. So just put 𝘀𝗏𝗏 in there, 𝘀𝗏𝗏 comes in with a teleport or something, and you kill 𝘀, put him behind 20 CS. And then even though the matchup will turn at some point naturally, it's not going to happen if that's the case.
Yeah, well, the game is beginning, so myself and 𝘀cie are going to take a step back, as taking over is 𝘁𝗏 on our desk, as well as 𝘁𝗏𝗏, the best VCS caster in the play-by-play position anyone could ask for, English or otherwise. Take it over, guys.
Well, I'll pass that on to 𝘁𝗏𝗏. Thank you, Rebel. That was an excellent desk, guys. I always love hearing from you, and I always love casting with my friend 𝘁𝗏. We don't get to do it enough. But we have a very good matchup here. Cerberus looking to lock in the undefeated split. 𝘀𝗏𝗏 looking to confirm the organization's first berth in playoffs. Truly, it's high stakes for both teams. And finally, this week has a game that means something.
Yeah, the week has been a little bit up and down with a lot of interesting performances from our other teams. But today, no one's going to hold back. I'm especially excited to see how Cerberus is going to approach this historic moment, because yeah, this is their opportunity to get the 14-0, and I can't even believe they are the first team that could go there, because we've casted so many splits where 𝘀 was just flat out dominating everyone, and they never ended 14-0. They always slipped up somewhere, just lost one series here or there, and ended 13-1, 13-1 again, never 14-0.
𝘁𝗏𝗏, they almost always fall off after week 5. So just condense the split and only have 5 weeks, and suddenly Cerberus is the best team of all time, except for playoffs.
Checks out.
So, it's an improvement. And we have this sub out. We assume it's a sub in the top lane as 𝘁𝗰's come in. Do you think there's a reason for that? Or is it potentially just someone sick?
I'm very puzzled by this as well, because Ryuk in the last few weeks has been a pillar of the team, actually giving them so much pressure from the top lane and performing well in all the skirmishes as well, with a lot of Renekton priority. Maybe they were scared that Ryuk couldn't hold up with any other picks, apart from the Renekton, and didn't want to pigeonhole themselves into picking the Renekton early and then maybe getting countered by Pun's tanks. But yeah, it's very confusing to me, and you already see him struggling in laning phase, which in the early levels even. This matchup is not going to get better, so that's a bad start for 𝘁𝗀. I hope we get some information maybe later on in the day, what is happening. Maybe something's wrong with Ryuk, I hope not. So yeah, let's see what 𝘀cie has cooked up for us in the first game, because this 𝘁𝗀 substitution came out of absolutely nowhere.
𝘁𝗀 living up to his name as he's just going to walk into the enemy jungle, but he doesn't spot 𝘀𝗀 with that Scryer's Bloom. That's an absolute disaster. Flash forward, flash follow, and 𝘀𝗀 begins the evolution. 𝘀𝗀, though, he's on full health. He can just turn around onto Yado. Pun goes diving forward, but there's the gravity field to hold them up. 𝘁𝗀 jumping forward. It's an absolute disaster as the evolution continues your way, and BTS comes in with 3. We go straight down to the bot lane because the party never stops in the VCS. No, the Graviton will, in fact, send them home.
What a start! Egoing a little bit too much, and I have to go back to it. It's 𝘀𝗀 outperforming Ego today. There has to be one of the ways for 𝘀𝗀 to win the series, and what a start for him, punishing Ego's aggressive invade. And Ego must have known that he was still around, because there was a ward expiring, so he knew that 𝘀𝗀 was in the area. No respect whatsoever, good roam from 𝘀𝗀, and 2 kills and 1 assist on this Victor. He's on 1 evolution after 4 minutes. This is now a very, very difficult lane to play for Yado, because with the E evolution early on, that's wave clear you can't compete with, even as a Ryze. But let's take another look at this one.
I mean, I genuinely just think it's because he wanted the Scryer's Bloom to hit that bush.
Yeah, Ego just overstepping, doesn't communicate well enough with Yado. We have Yado actually teleporting on the other side, but Ego commits to running away, so everything just doesn't work out. Pun is only level 3, he gets decent burst in, but then there's nothing he can do. And yeah, Xin Zhao in the early levels, he might be a jungler, but he's one of the strongest duelists in the game. So if you give him some time to just stack up his Conqueror in this game, not lethal tempo, interestingly enough, he will destroy you. 3-0 for 𝘀𝗀 in the early game. And this draft for Cerberus, I have my questions about it. Let's see how they can recover from this early deficit.
And it's going to be hard. You know, we talk about, I know 𝘀𝗀 really likes to make the point, and I agree with him, about how good Victor is. We're going to have to come back to those. 𝘀𝗀 throws himself forward. The wind becomes lightning, does so much damage. Yado essentially has to exit the fight, but 𝘀𝗀 will be found. 3v2 was not the engagement they wanted.
One matchup we didn't really talk about much on the pre-game desk, because every single matchup here on the Rift today is exciting, is 𝘀𝗀 the best support in the league. I'll just say it, because no one can deny that from his amazing split. And once again, he does have flash. He's very squishy, though. Here he goes.
There it is. Flash knock up into the headbutt. Now he has to try and find a way out. He will go down to the Leona, but on the other side, they shut down the Victor, and Artemis has made his way into the mid lane. 𝘁𝗀 going low will live, but Cerberus bite back.
This is how the best team in the VCS fights back after an early deficit, immediately going for more plays. Everything through 𝘀𝗀 just roams up ahead of 𝘁𝗀. They're still behind 1.1k gold, and another kill went over to 𝘀𝗀, because of course 𝘀𝗀 level 4 is just not tanky enough to tank all of that damage from the accelerated Victor, but they get the shutdown onto Yado, so he should be in a better position now, can probably just wave clear into 𝘀𝗀 easily, and they also get 𝘀𝗀's they also punish 𝘀𝗀 while his flash is still down, so that's another opportunity now. Ego, close to level 6, should be an easy gank on 𝘀𝗀 again, and he needs to play the next few minutes a little bit more cautiously to not give up many more kills to Yado and Ego.
Yeah, it's very, very true, but still, this Victor is frightening. Scaling on up, as you said, the evolution already coming in so early. He's a bit of a disaster. You know what else is a disaster? It's 𝘁𝗀 getting cycloned on. As look at all of the damage coming in. There is no hope for the Jace. And the Cerberus, they get off to a bad start, but they do not say die.
Yeah, this didn't disturb them at all. They're just playing their game. Pun in a perfect position to punish the Jace. And Zayn needs to be so much more careful with his wave positioning. I think the ship has actually sailed now. He's probably just going to stay in the tower and try to not die against Pun, because all of the dominating early game from Jace is gone. But yeah, you just can't push up this far into the lane, as Yado is sprinting down the river for his ultimate.
He is going to be spotted out by 𝘀𝗻𝗄 and 𝘀𝗻𝗈, who don't seem to care much at all about him, as they are just going to try and make their way past, but with 𝘂e joining the fight. Ooh, misses the Q, so the Leona will be safe. 𝘀𝗀 finishes clearing the wave and backs on off. In the end, the bot lanes just return to where they came from, but 𝘀𝗀 will take the Rift Herald.
That's a very curious little play. Not really sure what either team was thinking. I think Yado tried to catch them in the rotation, but then no one else was there, so he couldn't really commit fully to the fight. But 𝘀𝗀's bot lane didn't really want to fight either, because their top side was focusing on the objective, so just a stare down. They just walked away from each other, back to clearing waves. And it's 1-for-1 trade in terms of objectives across the map, which usually favors the Rift Herald composition, or traditionally you would think so. Maybe not on this patch, because yeah, we have stronger dragons now. But this composition from 𝘀𝗀 is focused on the mid game, so I think they want to be...
𝘀𝗀, this is not where you want to be, as he is getting chunked down. He goes so low from the last overload. If 𝘂𝗀e had hit a Q, that was a dead Xin Zhao.
𝘀𝗀 just overstepping.
Yeah, I mean, nerves of steel.
Yeah, 𝘀𝗀 needs to be on the edge. He needs to always look for the biggest opportunities possible. The invade maybe not really necessary, especially with 𝘀𝗀 lacking behind in map positioning. But he gets away without using his flash, so now he does have the Rift Herald, and I want to see him use the Rift Herald, maybe not in top lane.
Hello!
Yeah, there we go.
Now it's 𝘀𝗀e just constantly on the roam, moves in, gets 𝘀𝗀 another kill. The evolution, the glory evolution, is truly online. This Victor's terrifying, 𝘂𝗀e.
He is scaling up very quickly, and usually Cerberus is on the side of the scaling Victor, the other being the best Victor player, then maybe 𝘀𝗀e in the second place. But 𝘀𝗀 has shown us a few Victor games, and he looked okay. Not really the style 𝘀𝗀 likes to go for, so this is just a very standard, nicely executed play. It's going to be the flash from 𝘀𝗀e down, but he's probably the one member who doesn't need the flash to be safe. 𝘀𝗀e's Alistar just don't have the damage right now to kill 𝘀𝗀e, so you would need either Yado or 𝘂𝗀e, or maybe both of them to go down to punish 𝘀𝗀e's flash. So that's a really good investment. Flash from Leona for a kill for 𝘀𝗀. You always take the trade. He's 3-1-2, has his first item ready now, crown completed, so he's even harder to kill now. And this is 𝘀𝗀e's way into the late game. I think Victor is the one thing that actually gives their composition hope, even if we move into the 4-item territory. Because, yeah, I think he can really 1v9 the late game team fights with his range and his control.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think Victor is one of the better scaling picks in the game, particularly with the state that he's in at the moment on this preseason with the crown. It's kind of insane. Oh, but we go down to bot side, and they are finally going to punish the fact that 𝘀𝗀e just doesn't want to lane.
𝘀𝗀e̱ falling prey to the engaged 𝘀𝗀. You always have to consider the 𝘀𝗀 engage, because he finds angles where there are no angles. Now Zayn might be punished as well. He needs to be super careful. 𝘀𝗀e's here.
There, 𝘂𝗀𝗀e moving in. The flash has already been used. 𝘁𝗀 doing a good job to flash away, but now there's the Cyclone onto the Xin Zhao. He will fall. 𝘁𝗀 gets greedy, gets Rune Prison. Double kill for 𝘂𝗀e.
And 𝘀𝗀 1v3.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think he's going to go in on this one, 𝘂𝗀e. I think it would be a little bit dangerous, but he is floating around. Has already used the Chaos Storm. I think he is just going to come up and clear the wave.
And just unclear communication from 𝘀𝗀e going in too early when their strongest member, 𝘀𝗀e, with all the AoE damage, was still on the run up towards top lane. Zayn doesn't really provide anything, and then 𝘀𝗀e, he focused too hard on getting the one kill instead of trying to use his ultimate to peel or do anything for 𝘁𝗀. So just an over-aggressive play for 𝘀𝗀e. They are now behind in kills and in gold after an amazing early game. So Cerberus still showing their presence. 𝘂𝗀e still on the map with one of his best champions. Playmaking in the top lane. Now everyone is fed, but maybe the bot lane. But even Artemis got a kill now. So Cerberus just spreading the gold very nicely, while 𝘀cye's gold is all on 𝘀𝘀cie. So it's basically 𝘀𝘀cie against all of the enemy team.
Yeah, essentially, they are just going to have another crack in on the top lane here. The Herald's drop, so they just want to get this Jace some gold. Kind of an interesting choice to funnel it to here. I think it will just be the plates. They don't want to go for anything more, particularly with getting chunked out. 𝘀𝘀cie waiting in the wings just to keep them safe. Well played there.
Seems to me like a little bit of a stubborn approach from 𝘀cye. I would have liked to see it drop in the mid lane, maybe even combined with a gank on 𝘂do, and then try to get some more gold into the mid lane and break the mid lane tower open. This was certainly their game plan, to go into top lane and give 𝘀ine... Oh, 𝘀ine might just die again. Yep, there he goes.
There. Oh, no, good E, but the flash forward from Pun is even better. And down onto the bottom side, we do have the roam coming in. The fires are burning. 𝘂do is popping off as the Gravitum is used to try and bind up 𝘀𝑺, but with 𝘀𝘀cie coming in, they do need to back off. But Cerberus, they're just the better team right now. 𝘀𝑺 caught under tower, has to flash away. Does manage to live.
Yeah, Cerberus is just ahead in every single lane, ahead in plays all the time. 𝘀cye can't keep up with the pace. They were doing great in the early game. Actually, okay, 𝘀𝑺. Well, Cerberus is not a perfect team either. Just as I praise their plays, sometimes they overstep, especially with the top side, especially with the ego involved. So, not something we have never seen before, but actually quite a big shutdown. Unfortunately, the gold goes to 𝘀𝑺, who isn't the main carry or anything on the team. It's gonna accelerate him towards 2 items, which is really the breakpoint you want to look for after the early game and the mid game for 𝘀𝑺. But yeah, Cerberus just dominating the map and looking for plays over and over again. I'm especially surprised, maybe not surprised, maybe more impressed by the synergy of 𝘂do and Unofficial movement, because you don't really consider these two champions to have great synergy, but 𝘂do, even from behind, while constantly under pressure from 𝘀𝑺cie's Viktor, is able to make so much happen on the map, and once he tries to go for the play, there's already an 𝘚listair engaging.
Yeah, so this looks great for Cerberus early on. It actually continues looking great until right at the end, as 𝘀𝑺 gets chunked out. Ego getting a little bit too big for his britches there.
It's a very scary champion to die. If you look at his HP bar and how much he heals all the time, that's probably already a 400 HP total he has healed in this fight. As we have another fight in life, but this is not going to amount to much. There's another big heal, Conqueror is stacked. Look at that, 𝘀𝑺 just doesn't die.
Oh, over the wall they go. They're bearing down, but Cerberus, they get away easily.
Now, let's take a look at all the items coming in. Cerberus is slightly ahead in map positioning and in gold, and they have their first item power spikes already looking at 2 items, or especially for Artemis. And 2 item Aphelios is going to be difficult to deal with, especially when 𝘀ine is behind in gold, especially when 𝘚liya isn't even close to first item, because Aphelios is very good dealing with divers. And this kind of composition where 𝘀𝑺 has to be the main diver, I don't think he brings the damage really to 1v1 the enemy ADC. So what I would like to see from 𝘀cye is recognize that you can't dive the enemy ADC and play with your range and your control and let 𝘀𝑺cie do the main job at killing Artemis. But I'm not sure if they're going to recognize that in time for the game to not run away, because if they dive once and Artemis gets a triple kill or something and the counter dive, it's going to be rough to play afterwards, but it's also going to be rough to defend against 𝘂𝑑o.
Just used as a bit of vision there. Ronop diving in, double knock-up. This is really good start here for Cerberus. They turn it around. They do manage to get one back, but with 𝘀𝑺cie dead, you know that that is going to be the end. It's a triple kill. The moon is bright.
Yeah, I talked about a triple kill for Artemis. Here we go.
You are 𝘀𝑺cie of 𝘚𝘀cie.
I didn't expect this to happen like this, where Cerberus were the aggressors. I thought 𝘀cye would be the one diving on top of Artemis and he would just kill them all one by one. Instead, it's just Cerberus collapsing in time again. 𝘀ine was in bot lane. Jhin was trying to set up his ultimate, but it's just a Jhin ultimate. 𝘚listair laughs at those bullets. And what is 𝘀cye doing in this position? You ask yourself, how did I end up here? Well, they don't know either. No one knows, but Cerberus is gladly taking the money, as Artemis is not even close to dying. I tell a lie, he was actually decently close to dying, but now it's a triple kill for him. It's a second item coming in. He's straight going to go for the IE. That's what I like to see. from my 𝘀𝗻𝗀 players. So he's going to hit like a truck, and even 𝘀ary is going to struggle to keep up in DPS with 𝘁𝗻𝗺's 4-0-1.
And look, I know that there is a significant difference even on even items between a 𝘰ine and an 𝘀𝗻𝗀. But 𝘀𝗚e, is that difference a little bit exacerbated when the 𝘀𝗀𝗀 has an extra collector?
Nah, it's fine. It's 𝘰ine, right? He just
He's best.
he deals the same amount of damage, right? Yeah, no, this is unsalvageable from the ADC position, and this is one of my main matchups for the whole series. So in game 1, certainly goes 𝘁𝗻𝗺's way, to no one's surprise. He's by far our best player, our best ADC, and I'm going to say our best player in the league, in my opinion. Once again, showing up with KDA, with CS. Look at his CS again, it's more than 10. He's just never making any huge mistakes and continuing to keep up the carry pants. So yeah, I'm not sure how 𝘁𝗀𝗎 can recover from this game, but this first one is looking rough already for 𝘀𝗀.
Oh, the boot comes in, and it's a kill delivered on a silver platter to 𝘁𝗻𝗺. It doesn't get easier than that.
Yep, another good play for Cerberus, and the way they've recovered is really worthy of a championship team, in my opinion. The way they fall down in the early game, 3 kills very quickly to 𝘀𝗀. Other teams, Cerberus themselves, just a few months ago, would be shook. But this is not the Cerberus we're seeing on the screen right now. Decisive, aggressive, and just knowing what to do.
But Pun comes in, 4-man knockup from that first tick of the Cyclone. They do manage to evacuate, but the tower will fall, opening up the 𝘰ine ult. The curtains are here. He just can't find the shots, though. He was blind. He was just trying to fire in and find the monkey, but the monkey did run away.
Actually, so angry we don't get to see the damage totals in this game. I think this would be my #1 game to point at and say 𝘰ine is not a good champion. But now that's a
𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀. 𝘁𝗁𝗺 overstays, punished by 𝘀𝗀𝗀.
He isn't the perfect player either. Very seldomly does do these kinds of mistakes, but sometimes they are still there. He's still a VCS player. He's still Vietnamese, so sometimes he just has to overstep to give the enemy team a little bit of a chance.
Here you go.
Not giving a chance. Good flash.
But now the collapse is coming as Pun moves in. 𝘀𝗀𝗀 has stolen the red buff. 𝘀𝗀 should just evacuate. That's a good little fight back for them.
Dangerous and invade. They've already fallen prey to it twice in this game, but this time 𝘁𝗻𝗺, of course, is down on the map, so can't really punish them with the ADC. Instead, it's just going to be Cerberus collecting some waves, and we should move to a little bit more of a quieter period of the game. We have 21 kills already in 21 minutes, so definitely not lacking for action so far, as both teams have put up a big fight, and Cerberus punishing 𝘀𝗀 for every overstep so far. But they don't really have to keep on pressing their advantage right now. They can also just sit back a little bit, try to go for the Dragon Snowball, as they're already moving towards Soul Point. That dragon is spawning, so let's see if 𝘀𝗀 has anything to say against that dragon take.
We'll have to find out. 𝘁𝗀𝗀𝗀 is on the side. Cloud Drake, not Soul, is picked up. It's Soul Point. 𝘀𝗀 don't care. They just want to try and pressure this inner tower, but the collapse is here. There's a knockup being used onto 𝘀𝗀𝗀. It doesn't really get anything done. 𝘁𝗀𝗀𝗀 is just going to die. The gravity field onto Ego as well. He has to run. Zap goes the laser, and 𝘀𝗀𝗀 is charging forward. A Realm Warp will get 𝘁𝗁𝗺 out of there. But that's 2 kills picked up for 𝘀𝗀, and they've got a worm in their sights.
What was Cerberus thinking there? Pun was not interested in joining at all. He had his teleport ready, but made no move whatsoever on the map. Now, this could be inhibitor traded for Baron, which is usually favorable for the inhibitor, in my opinion, especially if the Baron is going to spawn in 6 minutes' time, and then the inhibitor is a nice asset to have. They are trying to get back into the base in time to defend the inhibitor, and they should be able to do so. So it's just an inhibitor tower. Now the trade is better for 𝘀𝗀𝗀, and a huge mistake, a huge disagreement in what to do on the map for Cerberus. They had nice positioning to flank, but 𝘁𝗀𝗀𝗀 just too far ahead, even though he's one of the tankiest champions in the game. He can't tank for that long. Yeah, and Pun just not interested in joining whatsoever. 𝘀𝗀𝗀 taking over the lead again, getting the Baron under the belts, and suddenly the game is closer than expected once again.
Yeah, and look, I think we have to give real credit here to 𝘀cie showing some resilience and keeping this one even. This replay is not the most interesting thing ever. It is just a good
Just look
pitching.
at how far
by,
𝘀𝗀𝗶𝗃 is away from his team. This is
Yeah,
only
exactly.
a 50% damage reduction. Like the 𝘀𝗀 ult doesn't make you immune to anything. It just reduces the damage by 50%, but 50% is not enough to not die to 5 members when you're 1 level 9 𝘀𝗀. So just overplaying his cards a little bit there, too far away from his team. And 𝘀, I actually want to praise 𝘀 recognizing that this is not a fight to go for, not chasing the loss of the lost fight and just saying, well, team, you kind of messed up there, so I'm going to take a little bit of gold and I'm going to try and make the play as even as possible. And we can see Cerberus immediately on the map again, getting another tower against Baron, so they are still so quick to make their rotations, and back in the gold lead out of nowhere.
Yeah, it is the sign of Cerberus's strength. Though, of course, it is only 200 gold, very much meaningless at this stage. As 𝘀𝗀𝗋 alone, his passive is giving him far more than 200 gold's value. 400 now, but they are moving in.
Oh.
This is a bit of an overstep. 𝘀𝗀𝗺 pops the Crescent Guard to try and zone them off on the side, and his 𝘀𝗀𝗋 getting caught out. He goes gold. They've killed the Rise. Look how much aggro he draws. He gets away, dodges the 𝘀𝗻𝗺 ult. Victor stands. 𝘀𝗀𝗺 now moving in onto 𝘀, gets the knockup. Can he take him down? He should be able to momentarily, as he does go in. 𝘀𝗀𝗶 tries to be a hero, but meets the spear of Xin Zhao, and 𝘀cie win the fight. They take the tower, and they're firmly in the lead.
𝘀𝗀𝗋! What happened to 𝘀𝗀𝗋? Suddenly they can team fight and stand up to Cerberus, but this is a dangerous...
Wants the kill. There it is, the shutdown, the ace. Sahin dies for it, but you take it every day of the week.
They missed the opportunity to get the mid lane inner or mid lane inhibitor tower. They only get an outer tower. They are firmly in the gold lead now, actually accelerating a little bit ahead and getting their main carry some much needed gold. Sahin is scaling up and actually contributing to the fights as well. But 𝘀𝗀𝗺 is the engine of the team right now. He is moving everyone around the map and he's controlling the team fights. Amazing positioning from an amazing CC contribution. Look at this. Generally, 𝘀𝗀𝗺 just buys so much time, and then 𝘀𝗀𝗋 and 𝘀𝗀𝗺, they are the two poles of this
𝘀𝗻𝗺
fight.
as well. Two-man Leona ult there, actually stunning both. That was pretty fantastic.
Very nicely done, indeed. But 𝘀𝗀𝗺, look at him. He's such a huge menace. He can just chase down the other targets, while the rest of his team, the 𝘀𝗰𝗋 members of his team, concentrate on the mid lane. Not really sure what 𝘀𝗀𝗶 was thinking here, trying to help. Rule number 1 in League of Legends, never help your teammates. It's a really bad play. You almost always die. So just walk back to the base. In the end, it's just one support death, so it doesn't really matter too much. But could have just gotten away with another living member and maybe defended Artemis in the mid lane play. So Cerberus, look a little bit shook. And this week already, they played a very close game against 𝘀𝗀𝗋. Interestingly enough, playing against the both of the playoffs contenders still in the race. And the first game against 𝘀𝗀𝗋 won a decent amount of team fights. In the end, Cerberus still 2-0'd them, but this is another one where Cerberus might fall down, and 𝘀𝗀𝗋 looking confident, walking in the top lane wave.
Potentially, as this inhibitor tower will fall. Oh no,
Okay,
your way. This is how.
What did
Oh,
they
it's a
just
base
do?
race. Of course, this is how the game ends. As here comes 𝘀𝗀𝗋. They want to go in onto 𝘀𝗀𝗶, and I think it's going to actually be not even close. Actually, oh, I tell a lie. This is going to be really close your way. As the nexuses are open on both sides, is it going to come down to two auto attacks? And there it is. The picture-in-picture spoils it. 𝘀𝗀𝗋 win by about 2 auto attacks your way. 2 auto attacks are in our first game.
Who would have thought that Cerberus of all teams, the late game team, the best team fighting team, would opt into racing for the game? But a huge mistake from 𝘀𝗀𝗋. I hope we get to see that again. 𝘂𝗀𝗋's ultimate was 1 second too early. He actually teleported the minions and the champions away from the inhibitor before the inhibitor went down, so they had to walk back in shame to the inhibitor to get the last hit in, and this caused Cerberus to be just the second or two slower than 𝘀𝗀𝗋. They actually had the winning play. Just a mistiming on the last ultimate. Very unfortunate for Cerberus, but 𝘀𝗀𝗋, in 26 minutes, 1-0 against Cerberus. What a game.
insane stuff. We have to go to a break. We have to catch our breath. We'll be back with 𝘀cie and Rebel in about 7 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Oh boy, what a series this is going to be.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the VCS English Analyst Desk. A base race to start our first game of the day, our last day
Let's
of the
go.
regular season in typical VCS fashion, keeping things spicy down to the last minute. I don't know that we could have predicted a BTS versus 𝘀𝘀 base race, especially one as early as like 30 minutes into the game, something along those lines. 𝘀cie, what in the world?
Yeah, where do I even start? I mean, I don't even hate the call that much, and this might just trigger my other analysts here. But I mean, you were in the game that you were very likely to lose either way because you couldn't teamfight against the victor either way anymore, and you were also dropping that one small condition you had maybe with Dragon Soul or maybe Elder later on. You go for this call, it almost works, and then you botcho it. We will see a replay of it later on, where we
Yeah.
can go into more detail about it. And you just make some mistakes where you could have given yourself a much better chance at it, and it was evilly close considering how far 𝘀𝘀 was ahead. Gotta say though, with that draft, they kind of did 𝘀𝘀 a first favor and with that early game as well. And feeding free takedowns into the victor early on is not maybe the greatest idea. And yeah, gotta say there was only one thing I liked about that draft. It was a Wukong against Jace pick, which kind of triggered a discussion earlier on. But otherwise, yeah. That did work for sure, but overall, I mean, 𝘀𝘀 maybe played a bit too much with their food, and the food just started to be living food that bites you back.
Let's put the replay on, and 𝘀𝗈, you could talk us through a bit of it because you got to see it live. But this was absurd. We know we talked about the Rise ultimate being a massive factor in this, where if that actually lands, this game gets turned. 𝘀𝘀 all of a sudden down. There it is.
No.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, just having to turn away and go take that inhibitor, the minions basically accomplish nothing. You're talking the difference of 1 to 2 auto attacks, and as 𝘀𝘀 had so lovely put it, that was literally the difference. It could have come down to the smallest margins of single points of damage between the two of these teams as they come in. I mean, this was 𝘀𝘀 almost. This is, I think, the first time we've seen 𝘀𝘀 desperate in a game like that, and 𝘀𝘀 pushes them there. What happened? Like what? Not is it just composition? Is that all that needs to be fixed here from the side of 𝘀𝘀? Like, was there something bigger or larger going on in the background here?
So I think there are two things. So yes, the victor was threatening, and also 𝘀𝘀 positioning very well, and the composition from 𝘀𝘀 just coming together in the mid game. I still feel like 𝘀𝘀 in their usual state would just wait and fight in 10 minutes and go for the Dragon Soul and just win with Artemis smurfing and so on. But I think 𝘀𝘀, so on one hand, they felt a little bit threatened, and on the other hand, they wanted to really show that they can not only be the team fighting gods, but also the smartest team, right? If you make this happen with the Rise ultimate, teleporting in everyone underneath the Nexus towers, and basically steal away the victory there, everyone is going to be astonished and just look at you and say, wow, how can we even beat this team? They out team fight us, they out mechanic us, and they outthink us. So maybe even more hubris. Maybe I'm just going down this rabbit hole too much today, but I really feel like 𝘀𝘀 is showing overconfidence today in play and in draft. Let's see if they still do it for the second game.
And for both of
Definitely.
you, oh yeah, before we step into the draft of game number 2, which will be coming up here any second now, I want to talk about we identified the potential of bot lane going well, which did not. Because I mean, despite playing like what is potentially, if not just straight up, a top 3 ADC within the split, which has really turned things around for the side of 𝘀𝘀, got absolutely destroyed by Artemis on the bottom side, alongside Ron OP. And top lane, the Seihin Gambit did not work because Seihin stepped in on a Jace pick. They weren't able to get it ahead. They weren't really able to get it to win over top of 𝘀, who had an amazing game himself. It was the combination of 𝘀𝘀 with 𝘀𝘀ry that did a lot of damage. And yes, there was supplement from the rest of the team to make sure that this was a well-oiled machine, all things said and done. But this is at least a point of intrigue that even when the strong points for the side of 𝘀𝘀 were working, they weren't able to put the pieces together. So it's a question of now, does 𝘀𝘀 have to adapt their game plan to this mid-jungle that is coming out from the side of 𝘀𝘀?
I don't think they need to change that much, but they need to do some fixing. That is, for one thing, the draft. I don't think you should give over Victor and then pick Wise into it and just scale next to him. And then the other thing comes to mind, which is ego and his ego. I mean, that early invade, that just wasn't it. I
yes.
mean, both Solins had to come and salvage the play, and they both kind of made it worse because Victor got 3 takedowns at like the 4th minute and was like already getting to like one stage of the evolution there, and it didn't get better from that. I also want to highlight a little bit that 𝘂𝐿𝐴 played very well with his 𝘀𝗀𝗋 there and really took part in accelerating Victor further. But the lion's share of the acceleration of the 𝘀𝐿's evolution was just done by Cerberus themselves. It just doesn't need to happen.
And I feel like it's very important to look at the Victor. He's climbing the priority list after being kind of overlooked for the first week or so of the preseason. Now he has firmly established himself as maybe the #1 to pick, especially when Cerberus is involved. And I feel like this is really going to be one of the most important things to look at for the draft, because last time 𝘁 first picked the Victor, and Cerberus should be on blue side now. So are they going to be first picking Victor here? Are they scared? Is 𝘁 going to ban away the Victor? I think this pivotal pick is really going to decide a lot of the next game.
And now we're 1 game out at this point from where I mean, you're talking about BTS is going to be going into quarter or to playoffs, right? Taking that, SGB fans are sweating profusely right now. Please excuse me.
yes.
Gotta wipe that off my brow. But the important bit also is just that this is also means the denial of an undefeated split from Cerberus literally days before the playoff kickoff, where they're playing the same team that might beat them for the only time they split. I want to talk about mental damage and what that can do to the psyche. I don't know whether or not it's Cerberus holding picks and not willing to do kind of the stuff that they've been prepping for the later game of the season. We don't know whether this is fault. It's kind of difficult to read what happened to Cerberus because that was such a wonky game. So my question is, if 𝘀𝚻 takes a 2-0, hands them their first loss of the split, and then you walk into playoffs and you have to face that team a second time, is it a good thing because now you know the team, how they beat you and you can adapt to it? Or is it enough of a hit to the mental to where Cerberus might have some falter even in a best of 5?
So I'd say for any team that's not Cerberus, that's 13-0 coming into the last series, they would just brush it off, say, yeah, whatever. We lost to them, but we know we're better. We have such a good game score. But for Cerberus specifically, they are the chokers. They are the players underperformers. They are always coming into players as one of the big favorites or one of the maybe fan favorites, and never end up winning a best of 5. So for them to get this mental damage into the players that are going to take place next week already, that would be really bad in my opinion. So Cerberus should try to get the things together here and just win the next 2 games and show 𝘁 who is boss.
I think it depends a little bit on the mental state where Cerberus currently is, and we cannot really tell because we don't really get that much insight into the actual player there. But I mean, it just depends on what kind of attitude or approach they have towards this series in particular. To me, it looked like they were just trying to style a little bit and then got a little bit of a reality check, which might actually favor them. And I don't think they went into the series and were like, yeah, we have to win the series just to... just for the sake of it, basically, just to get the perfect split going. I think what they tried to do was with both draft and early game, and maybe also like the way they tried to approach this ending base rate there. Maybe they deliberately tried to shake the mentality of 𝘀𝚻 there, and it just went a little bit wrong for them in this one game. I don't quite know, of course, exactly what it is, but if it's just this one game, it's definitely fine for them. If it's a 2-0 and they just now get blown out the water with standard compositions, then I think we should be slightly worried, at least for Cerberus. And considering what Cerberus has been before known as a player of circus, maybe we should be very worried for them.
Let's hope that doesn't happen. We would like to see a Cerberus, even if they lose this series, come into playoffs at full form, because they looked incredibly good for the majority of the split. Now, are the two of you familiar with the concept of over/under? You pick a number and you decide whether that's too high or too low, that kind of thing.
Yep.
I'm gonna do this to both of you, and I'll put you on a spot here because there's another opportunity because we're waiting for the draft to come up, and we'll break this if the draft actually starts. So we can talk about the game. I'm never gonna be able to convince everybody of this, but I'm gonna throw a number for you right now. 𝘀𝗀𝗆 is the 3rd best jungler in the VCS. Over/under. We'll start with 𝘀𝗀𝗃. Your thoughts on that?
Would over now mean better or worse?
Over would
Okay.
mean that he's I guess overrated in this case, and under would mean that that's too low.
And I cannot say exactly correct or something. That's like the gimmick with it, right?
I mean, yeah,
Uh,
you could say over under. Either one's fine.
um, over.
Over. Okay. This is the expected answer because obviously you're comparing him. Basically, what I'm saying is that there is a Levi, a 𝘁cie𝗰𝗶, and an Ego sitting in front of him, and I'm saying one of those three, Ego, is worse than 𝘀𝗀𝗺 this split. Whether or not that
I'll say
opinion
under.
holds between the two of you, you're gonna say under. You think he's better than Levi and or
I think
𝘁cie𝗰𝗋?
he's better than 𝘁cie𝗰𝗋.
That's fair. I was trying to take it a little bit less because I was going to call him the second best jungler in the split, but I gave it as a third as a potential to open
Same.
up a little bit. But yeah, 𝘁𝗋 is the radicalist here, one way or another. And 𝘀𝗀𝗋s with the clutch timing on the advertisement. Not that it matters. The Christmas season is upon us, folks. It's a nice gift for all of your friends and family to join the 𝘀𝗀𝗺 fan club. Now 50% off, by the way. It's just an intriguing prospect. His development since I started casting has been incredible. 𝘁𝗋, I know you were there as well, so you could talk a little bit about it. And 𝘁cie, you could see his development. I can't talk enough about the player, but I don't want to focus on him too much for a second. I just wanted to give props because, again, he's playing like at minimum top half, if not a top 2 jungler inside of this split for the likes of 𝘀𝗀𝗺. A number of these players have stepped up dramatically between 𝘁𝗀𝗺. 𝘀𝗀 is literally playing as a top 3. 𝘀𝗀𝗺, they are playing against a team, I think, that might be punching well above their weight at the moment when it comes to a 4th seed. Is there something they can do to kind of re-allot power here? Can they put more into Artemis? Can they put more into 𝘂TO this game? Is there some sort of secret sauce that 𝘀𝗀𝗺, having watched the first game, having watched this team's development over the split, that 𝘀𝗀𝗺 can fix for the second game rather than just fixing the draft, anything like that?
I'd expect them to reel back a little bit, be a little bit less aggressive in the early game. Ego not going for random invades with no vision whatsoever, and maybe a little bit more tankiness from Spawn. They've shown us some tank compositions, right? With basically a very standard front-to-back teamfight composition. Some of what they're drafting right now looks more aggressive, so maybe that's not what we're going to see. They're first picking LeBlanc here for 𝘂TO, which is a very good 𝘁𝗀𝗺 champion, of course, but unexpected as the first pick, in my opinion, especially with Lee Sin, Leona, and the likes open. So, yeah, 𝘀𝗀𝗺 today is not holding back. They want to fight early, and they want to beat Skye in the second game with a dominating draft instead of skating for the late game, it seems.
I think to some extent they actually are holding back in draft because they somehow banned the Victor on blue side
That's
for
true,
whatever
yeah.
reason. When 𝘂TO is the best Victor in the league, I think they just go for I think I'm not convinced they had like a discussion whether to play for the perfect split and play to and maybe even play fully series today, or whether they just want to refuse to show anything and just maybe play towards anything else. And I think it's the latter here. I think they do not want to give Skye more information than they need to do.
Now, you're gonna sit here and say 𝘂TO's the best Victor in the league. 𝘀𝗀𝗻 is right there, man. 𝘀𝗀𝗻, I can't give him credit. Okay, listen, 𝘂TO was playing Victor when Victor was strong, right? 𝘀𝗀𝗻 is playing Victor when Victor is terrible. When Victor's at dog shit levels of actual win rate and play rate altogether. You gotta give him at least points for commitment. So I'm not gonna kick you off the desk yet, but say words about Syndra and see what happens. Anyhow, we get the counter to LeBlanc in the 𝘁𝗍 matchup. We haven't seen that specific matchup for at least a fair amount of time, and not very often for this split. I want to get both of your ideas here, because again, 𝘂TO and 𝘁𝗀𝗺 was a bit of early game tension that got resolved with quick fighting, and maybe we can see that again between the LeBlanc and the 𝘁𝗍 because of how powerful they are in the skirmishing game. What do you make of this mid lane matchup?
It's a very cool one, because it's very much 𝘂TO against 𝘁𝗀𝗺 as champions, because this is actually 𝘂TO's most played champion. He has a 100% win rate on this LeBlanc pick. And, okay, we don't have the last few games because of issues with the live client, but until we had all the stats, he was on a 27.3 KDA on this pick. So this is really the quintessential 𝘂TO, and 𝘁𝗀𝗺 has played so many 𝘁𝗍 games. I know 𝘁𝗂𝗋 is already getting excited because he's probably our most aggressive 𝘁𝗍 player in the league, so this mid lane is going to be a scrap from start to finish.
And I'm a little bit worried for both teams here, because for once, 𝘁𝗍 in laning is not very good against the LeBlanc. You can just get smashed there, and I think 𝘁𝗍𝗺 might just run away with the early game here, but you have 𝘁𝗍 against Alistar, and that is very, very good for the 𝘁𝗍. The Alistar ultimate, one of the best ultimates to hijack from. You get to be a tanky 𝘁𝗍, and Yeah, and with that, you can just be an absolute menace that is just both tanky and can kill everything. And yeah, the draft has shaken up quite interestingly as 𝘀𝗶𝗹𝗀 wanted to point with his finger somewhere. I don't know why.
Wait, why are we playing Seihin if we're gonna pick Renekton? Play Ryu.
That's a
He's
good
playing
question,
Renekton on the split. Like, what in the world? You're gonna wait. I guess if you play Ryu, you have to pick Renekton early because the other team knows that it's gonna happen. But like, it feels like a very odd decision here. Although now Cerberus's composition, I think, has come full throttle if they go for that. I would have preferred the Vayne just because it's Artemis, and Artemis makes that champion look like a Lucian pick. But the Lucian pick to come in here means very quick aggression, pretty much across the board. Pun also on one of these kind of stalling picks, like the Tahm Kench that he's been favorable towards for the majority of the split, as we get to see how this composition rounds out a little bit as we get the ADC and the lock-in of the 𝘁𝗀𝗃. All things said and done, you need some percentage damage, I suppose, to try to rip through the health bar of that Dr. Mundo. So, gentlemen, talk to me about these drafts. Cerberus, very aggressive to start things off, and on the other side, there's some pretty equalized aggression.
Go for it.
Okay. I like that comment for the Mundo into Renekton again. He does this quite frequently, and Mundo is soon getting nerfed, and maybe we see again why that is the case. He can just neutralize his lane so well. I am a little bit worried still for with the Sky that they are not having too much early game there. Of course, they have Renekton Lee Sin, which kind of would convince you otherwise, but is the rookie top laner that just got kind of smashed in lane. You need to really play around him to really like make something out of the early game, and I think the silence against the LeBlanc will not really go greatly, and I'm not convinced with 𝘁𝗀𝗃 as a champion right now. It really is not that strong early game, and with Lucian instead of Vayne for Artemis, I think even Lucian Alistar lane can absolutely smack that apart.
So I do agree with you that the composition from Sky is not a great composition if you just look at global meta or just VCS meta, but it is the quintessential Sky composition. This is what they were so successful on. It's Renekton Lee Sin in the top side, then some aggressive mid laner, they have a lot of options there, and then 𝘁𝗀𝗃 and either 𝘀𝗀 or Leona in the bot lane. So this is really what Sky looked so amazing on, how they defeated 𝘀𝑠hi𝗰𝗏 2-0 with dominant games, how they defeated SE afterwards. So I don't like the champions, but I like Sky on these champions, and I think this is really the best chance of ever winning a serious game against Cerberus. Maybe the last one was a little bit of a gift in the end, wrapped by the fumbled Ryze ultimate there, but this one, I believe Sky is really putting in their absolute all and trying to beat Cerberus fair and square. On the other side, Cerberus also with a more serious composition, I'd say. Not quite as much hubris shown. I like pun on Mundo. I think it's one of the best looks they've shown us. And Mundo against 𝘁𝗃𝗃, well, if this goes late, the Mundo is not going to die. Never. No one can kill him.
We actually saw that a few weeks ago. It was the Pundo Pun V9. I think he had like 10 kills on the champion. He was absurd on it, and I'm excited to see it a second time. Again, quick caveat to anybody, especially Sky's coach or Seihin, if you happen to be watching, Drakthar, if you happen to be watching, big fan, by the way. Dive him, please. Please dive the Mundo. He has nothing to defend himself in the early levels. If you do not dive that champion, it will get out of whack very quickly. We've seen it happen with Mundo time and time again. I guess before we end up kicking out of this, because this is taking a bit more time than we were expecting, I think it's because we're on live client, we might have that 3-minute delay, which is why recently these have actually been slightly longer breaks. Cerberus is a composition that both works well in fighting very quickly, skirmishing combines between the Alistar and between the Jarvan really well. Really quick thoughts and I guess your predictions for the game on is there a place in this game for BTS to actually find aggression quickly, or are they going to be relegated more to trying to wait for scaling and then taking a versus team fight later in the game? Like, where exactly do they find their win here?
I think it's what you said initially, 𝘀𝗀𝗀. I mean, they just need to dive this Mundo at best pre-6 to really like get pun out of his tracks, because the Mundo doesn't. He shouldn't be allowed to scale freely here. I mean, maybe the 𝘁𝗃𝗃 actually for late game can actually kill the Mundo because he had that insane late game damage with the percentage speed damage from the plasma coming out. And I also agree with you that you have a very good composition that fits with the Sky's style, so to say. But I have like two things two questions that aren't really answered for me. Why is 𝘀WWE not on Lissandra? That would be better against the LeBlanc here, in my opinion. Also fits their style even better because it worked also against 𝘀𝗀cie and SBTC, if I remember correctly. And why is this Redactor not played by Ryuk? This would just be the ideal position to have it. And of course, you can't decide it mid-draft, but I think versus 𝘁 kind of, at least one of those things could have been fixable for them. And just considering the individual players, I still favor Cerberus here, but the draft from versus 𝘁 is far from bad.
So I do think Cerberus is going to win this game, but I do think BTS will play like they always play with this composition, which is dive bot lane early, dive bot lane hard, and try to accelerate the game through bot lane. They looked like 𝘀𝗀 when they had the very best game on this kind of composition, just diving over and over again and just putting behind the enemy bot lane, honestly, the whole team. So even though I hear you, I understand you want 𝘁 to be punished early on for the Mundo, I don't think it's going to happen. I think this is all about killing Artemis and 𝘀𝗀 in the bot lane, and 𝘀𝗀 out-roaming 𝘂do. I think Cerberus is going to be able to answer, so I think Cerberus equals the series here, but I'm excited. This is fighting fire with fire from Cerberus, just a lot of early aggression as well from their side. They're not sitting back, they're not scaling, they're not holding back anything. This is going to be a very fiery game.
Yeah, I feel like we actually have two compositions that are going to bash their heads together really quickly. And while that does lead to volatility, that's kind of the VCS style, right? This is a lot more traditional. And for two teams that have played decent macro, the majority of the split, Cerberus especially, but BTS also is probably one of our second, third best team at this. Playing out the later stages, if we don't get a bunch of 5,000 gold lead to start with, is big thing to track. You know who is going to be excited about a bunch of team fighting? 𝘁𝗁x. Let's bring 𝘁𝗁x back alongside 𝘀𝗚e to take it into game number 2.
Hi, I'm 𝘁𝗁x. I'm excited about a bunch of team fights. As we head into game 2, 𝘀𝗚e. It was an exciting way to end game 1. I couldn't be more excited. Cerberus now facing their first loss. Dead in the sights. 𝘁𝗀 is on a ward, but there's no position to punish. It's just information.
How did How did the ward get there?
Yeah, I guarantee 𝘁 just walked in.
Probably, yeah.
𝘁 just walked in and said, do you want to fight a level 1 Mundo? You can.
Oh man, so many exciting champions. Lucian for Artemis and 𝘁 on Mundo. Those are okay. Please, Elio, don't trade level 1 on Leona, please. Just give me this once.
To be fair, it's against an 𝘀𝗀, who also shouldn't trade level 1.
That's true. But...
so ideally, nothing happens in this lane till level 2. That'll make 𝘀𝗚e happy. 𝘁𝗀 going to this 𝘁𝗀. He has looked good on it. He got a pentakill on it.
It's a race.
What do you actually think of the pick, though? There's an engaged moving in. Elio hits 2 with that last minion falling. It is just going to be a little bit of poke, though. Onto Artemis, nothing mortal.
So, as I said in draft, I don't specifically like the champion. I think it's on the lower side of the power levels for ADCs, but it fits their composition, and what this team has done with the 𝘁𝗀 is just play her as an assassin, as a mid-game focused assassin. What ego is trying to do, again, this game is invade 𝘀𝗀 early, invade him hard, and try to kill him.
Good ward slide there from 𝘀𝗀. Manages to get away from the flag and drag. Still has to contend with the fact that they have a smite. The resonating strike doesn't actually land onto the blue buff. Ego steals it away. 𝘀𝗀 has to flash. Elio has gone the wrong way, but he just turns it around with a flash forward onto Ego. Can they actually pick up the kill? They can. It goes on to 𝘀𝗀e. That's double buff secured. Resonating strike goes on in. 𝘀𝗀 is the target. They're just going to pull away, though, with the mid laner collapsing. The Sylas is coming around the backside, potentially. No, not the Sylas, the LeBlanc. Nope, never mind, she's not. They just back off.
Very confusing back off. They had red buff and blue buff on their 𝘁𝗀.
Oh, 𝘁𝗀's in trouble, but it's just a 1-for-1. They have a little nap together.
Very ugly there, but fortunately both just walk away with 1 kill and can reset into the wave. But look at this again. Ego actually overcommitting so much to these early plays. Why is he flashing forward? He knows this is Lee Sin. This never works. This flash was horrible. If you want to flash engage him, always flash the second part of Q, because that's so much harder to react to. So that's just a really bad decision. Look at this positioning from Elio, just flashing on top of Ego. Very good communication from 𝘁𝗀's side to single out one champion that has no flash, because 𝘀cie overcommitted with his flash, so I was still confused why they didn't continue the chase with the red buff on 𝘁𝗀𝗃. She can definitely just walk Alistar down, or at least force the flash there.
𝘀cie was in base. I think they were just worried about a potential 𝘂𝗀𝗃 collapse.
Yeah, I mean, 𝘀cie can teleport if it really comes to the worst.
Yeah, but, you know.
Surprising, a little bit uncharacteristic for Skye, because usually they're a very aggressive team. But another good early game. Another early game starts with 𝘂𝗀 overstepping his welcome into the enemy jungle. So 𝘂𝗀 really needs to get his early game plans in line as 𝘀𝗀 and 𝗀𝗀.
They're just helping 𝘀cie shove in. Yep, they're just helping 𝘀cie shove in here. Evidently, he TP'd back and then got chunked out again, so not in the best position here on Sylas. Not a super easy matchup against LeBlanc, as he walks really far back before starting the back here. This is potentially going to be some CS loss to the tower.
𝘀cie is struggling.
These days.
This is to be expected. 𝘂𝗀 is a very good laner, especially on his mages. This is his most played champion on the split, and he has been amazing on it. 27 KDA, as I said before. So this is to be expected. I think 𝘀𝗀 wants to unlock his champion level 6 and go together with 𝘀𝗀 to invade other sides of the map. So far, not quite as aggressive as I would have expected this game to play out. The aggression actually starting from Cerberus' position instead of Skye's. And everything's still going rather easily on all the lanes, but what can 𝘂𝗀 do now with this early CS advantage? Is he going to go for a lane-focused style where he just tries to punish 𝘀𝗀 over and over again, or is he going to try and roam maybe into top lane, maybe into the bot lane, where no summoner spells are available for 𝘀𝗀 and 𝗀𝗀? So a dive in bot lane could be imminent.
And look at the CS in bot lane. That's going very poorly. 𝘀𝗀 is 21 CS behind.
I think they're just very scared because no one has flash right now. They don't want to overcommit. They don't want to give away their kill advantage for 𝘀𝗀. But by doing so, by playing defensively, they've actually given away the kill advantage in terms of gold. It's even now between the ADCs, which is okay. You're not supposed to be even against Lucian, but they could have maybe done a little bit more. As why are we watching two tanks fight each other? Let's just walk away here.
We'll just check it in. Go see some noodles cooking. See if they're still al dente or not. But in the end, it is just going to be Skye moving over, taking the dragon, picking up this Hextech Drake. I have to wonder if perhaps we will get another trip to the Chemtech Rift. But then again, we know that even Chemtech Soul is not good enough to beat Cerberus. SGB proved that one to us.
Well, there was a big buck in there as well.
There was.
So if we get the Chemtech Soul, maybe we talk about it more in depth. But if you want to check it out, look at 𝘂𝗀𝗃's channel. He actually had some VCS action going on. But we have 1 minute before the next huge objective spawns on the map, which of course is the Rifthold. And I expect both teams to make a beeline for that objective. Both junglers trying to get to level 6 too. But let's zoom out a little bit and talk about Cerberus, because remember, 𝘀𝗃, the last time... Oh, never mind. No time for that. It's a bot lane clash.
Wait, you tried to talk about narratives? That means it's time to fight your way. Oh, but no, they will back off. They heard you begin and they said, oh, we haven't had an in hindsight for a while. We need some your way SMR.
So the last time, you will definitely remember, because you were quite outraged by this play from Cerberus. The last time they went 10-0 in game score, what happened, 𝘀𝗃? Can you walk me through the process of Cerberus's amazing decision making?
They were 10-0 in games, not just series. They were undefeated in games, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, and then they made the big brain move to continue the undefeated streak of playing their academy roster and immediately losing. And I went nuts. I was so angry. You know who else is potentially going to be angry? Is 𝘂𝗀, as he does get found. He does get kicked back. That is a lovely play by 𝘀𝗀𝗃, but it's actually followed up by a good one by 𝘂𝗀 as well. And now it's trying to chase a LeBlanc. It's like boxing with shadows. You just can't find her over the wall. She goes, no! Oh, they have no idea! They have no idea where she is, but surely there's no way she gets out. Oh my god! 𝘂𝗀!
There's a reason why this man is 27 KDA on this champion. He just never dies. What an escape! And all the while, 𝘂𝗀 actually just took the Rifthold, because Skye was so focused on taking down this LeBlanc. They don't get the kill. They lose the objective for free as no one moves up the map. So I was lying to you. No one was making a move towards the Rift, and sneakily, 𝘂cio just stole it away.
That's insane. What a passage of play. That's absurd, 𝘂cie. There are no words.
This is Cerberus. This is the best team in the league. They are prone to doing some crazy stuff on the Rift, even though they are maybe our most structured team, together with, actually, incidentally, 𝘀cie, who also has a very clear game plan most of the time. They're once again coming in with this kind of game plan. I am still holding my breath. I feel like 𝘀cie should be more aggressive. Usually they play these kind of compositions so much more on the edge, but this game, not really able to find any aggressive plays. One of the issues is that they have no control over the bot lane wave, and usually they use their bot lane wave to crash into tower and then dive with 4 members. But this time around, they're constantly under pressure themselves, so not really enabling the other members to come in and back up the plan of the dive. Now instead, 𝘂cio is here, and this could be a 3-on-3 clash.
Well, unfortunately, right now it's a 3-on-2. 𝘀𝘀 mostly just here to cover the push in as 𝘁𝑖O was pushed back. 𝘀cie is having a trade with 𝘂𝑖O, needs to just wander backwards here. Of course, LeBlanc, not the most fun champion for 𝘁𝑎s to go against. The ultimate is not particularly useful. Very hard to get the right one. As Pun has shoved 𝘁𝑖𝑛 in, this Mundo is doing his job.
𝘁𝑖𝑛 is struggling, and this is not going to get any better now.
𝘀𝘀 needs to find a way out of this one. There's a kick under the tower. They're going to try and trade it back, but they can't. 𝘂𝑖O brings the cataclysm.
Nicely done from CES, and so many little mechanical outplays from either side. This time, 𝘀𝘀 actually had the perfect position to kick him into the tower, but 𝘂𝑖O doesn't care. He actually wants to be under the tower, and the kill over to Cerberus. They still have the Rift ult, so Cerberus now firmly in the control in this game. They can accelerate with a few platings in mid lane if they want to, but they can also just keep mining away tower plate after tower plate just through their individual laning. 𝘀𝑟ie is dead.
He is not looking very glorious. He gets punted away, and 𝘂𝑖O will bring it down. The flag kills him off. Doesn't even die to the tower on the way out. And 𝘀cie, they just don't have a response to this little passage of play. They are going to stop them potentially shoving it into the tower with 𝘁𝑖O and 𝘀𝘀. But let's have a look at this replay. It was just 𝘂𝑖O playing perfect.
Yeah, very nicely done. 𝘂𝑖O actually engaging on 𝘀𝘀. 𝘀𝘀 this time not in time with the W to jump away from the knockup, so it's an easy kill. 𝘂𝑖O goes for another dive. As Pun gets the solo kill on top lane. The game is getting out of hand for 𝘀cie. They're losing everywhere. They're not supposed to die in laning phase. This composition is mid-game focused. You cannot fall behind too much. 𝘀𝘀, we're not talking. Okay, we don't talk about this queue. Dragon moves so much, it's hard to anticipate. But yeah, 𝘀cie really falling apart in the, let's say, 5 minute to 10 minutes time span. The same was true in the last game as well, if you think back, as we have a quick look at this amazing champion just using Q and E. Beautiful. Actually pretty close, I have to admit.
Yeah, one more 𝘀𝑚, and I think that actually goes the other way. But, I mean, Mundo is the perfect pick into Renekton. He stops the one thing Renekton does, which is the point-and-click stun.
As a prior Mundo main, that's such a weird sentence to hear, because in the prior iteration of Mundo, Renekton was a pretty hard matchup. Yeah, you outscaled him. Yeah, if you survived laning phase, you could definitely do stuff, but Renekton was able to punish Mundo quite heavily. Nowadays, because of the passive, Mundo is a really good pick into him, as you said before, able to equalize or handshake the wave, I should say, just farm evenly. And then, of course, Mundo is stronger in the later parts of the game. Everyone knows Renekton, haha, Sinnerchamp, haha. But this is really not supposed to happen this quickly in the game. I want to go back to the point of 𝘀cie not being able to keep up with Cerberus' pressure after 5-6 minutes in the game. They really seem to be unable to read the plays and make plays of their own compared to Cerberus, who's just moving quicker around the map. Their communication is crisp. They just go for play after play after play, relying on 𝘂𝑖O and sometimes 𝘀𝑚 to set those up. So we need to see if 𝘀cie wants to come back in this game or the next game. We need to see them go for more early aggression. Maybe it's 𝘀𝘀 who has to accelerate some of the plays in the early mid game.
Yeah, and even in game one we saw this, that for a long time in the mid game, that around this time onwards, you had Cerberus calling a lot of the shots, and Sky were just able to bounce back and fight better. But we want to see them taking off on the front foot. Let's see if they can actually do that in this game. 𝘀cie𝗰𝗶𝗹𝘀 is here. It's been here for a while. For 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀, it is going to be the 𝘀cie𝗰𝗶𝗹 on the Lucian as well, over the Gale Force. What do you think of that?
A little bit surprising. I've seen it before. It's more focused on really the highest damage peaks possible. You can also forgo any attack speed items doing this for Lucian, which you usually want to do anyway, because Lucian doesn't really profit that much from attack speed, but it's nice to have anyway. So it's a greedy build, but we don't expect anything else from Artemis, and more focused on the DPS part of Lucian, not so much on the execute with Gale Force, maybe against a squishy target. So I think he's already aiming at being the main carry, especially against 𝘀𝗀𝗎, 𝘀𝗀𝗃, and 𝘁𝗀 later on in the game. I don't mind it too much. It's a little bit unconventional, but I've seen it before, so nothing out of the ordinary, really. And to be expected from Artemis, if we're completely honest.
It's true. We do have potential play down on the bottom side. 𝘀𝗀𝗎 has stolen away the Mundo ult, pops it immediately as they're just trying to go under tower, but nope.
Well,
Mundo ult not actually as good for Sylas as I think really a lot of people look at it. It's percent health healing. He doesn't have that much. That doesn't have that much health. You take the Alistar ult, 𝘁𝗀 flashing away from the flag and drag. Well done.
And finally, Sky actually got the connection to our stream and listened back to our draft analysis, and they went, yeah, 𝘀𝘀cie and Rebel, those two very, very smart people, told us to dive the Mundo. Well, not 50 minutes into the game. They were talking about 3 minutes into the game. The dive on Mundo when Mundo is on 2 items.
Hang on, so wait, there's a 15-minute delay for them to hear our stream, okay? Game 3. Pick Kindred. Okay, they'll get that one in about 15 minutes. No worries. We'll check back. Let's keep on going. Let's have a look at sort of the key matchups. Obviously, the top lane, there's not a huge amount to say. Mundo just beats Renekton now. Renekton can still be useful in team fights, but not in side lanes. The mid lane matchup, I haven't been super impressed with 𝘀𝗀𝗎 so far, but Sylas, to be fair, wants to operate within extended skirmishes, which haven't really happened yet.
Yeah, and he needs some more time to scale, that's for sure. He has been a very successful player on the Sylas, 75% win rate, so at 77.2 KDA too, which, considering this team was almost all of the split was negative in win rate, is definitely something to look out for. But he really needs one skirmish where he pops off, gets a few more kills. I assume you want him to take the Alistar ultimate.
Yeah.
Yes, that's usually the case.
Alistar ultimate is one of the best ultimates in the game for Sylas. Oh, Elio, he does take a lot of damage. The culling being ripped in. That will be the mid lane tower falling. Sky have to back off.
And these are the kind of plays where Sky is showing that they're not quite a top team yet. Why are 4 people gathering around the falling mid lane tower instead of already moving into the bot wave to collect some experience and some CS there? They just completely forgot about the bot lane.
Good job.
And no one actually went there to collect the minion wave stacking up. No one is in bot lane now. All 10 players uninterested in just farming some minions. So this is going to be a free dragon for Cerberus, because Sky just didn't use any of their time. Cerberus was making the move in mid lane, and Sky was just looking on, just staring at the Rift Hole, trying to get rid of it, but of course you can't. So in the end, Cerberus now in a very comfortable position, just playing the game with a consistent, slow approach, just scaling up. Mundo is going to be unkillable. He's already close to that state, 2.5k HP under his belt. And look at 𝘀𝗀𝗎. He checks him once and says, no.
Yeah, you don't want to fight the Mundo at the moment. The one saving grace is that I think even Renekton can probably do it. Sylas definitely can. Is you can clear the waves out from under Mundo. Yeah. You can't kill him. He will either kill you or at the very least be able to run away. But you can clear the waves forever and stop him actually doing structure damage.
What do you think about Hullbreaker Mundo?
Mundo does buy what he pleases, so it's kind of up to him.
I'd like to see it in this game. It gives you 450 HP, which It's pretty nice for Mundo to have, even in team fights. So, AD, not the greatest stat to buy in Mundo, but not terrible either. You do have an auto attack reset, so I think this could be a game if he really fancies the side lane approach, but it seems like he's just going to go for more tankiness, armor. So actually 𝘀cie, the one member who might be able to get some damage onto this Mundo, and in the ultra late game 𝘀𝗻 with his AP damages on the plasma damage. But that's very far away right now for both of them, because 𝘀cie's on one item. So even base MR is going to be enough to defend against all of his damage. And 𝘀cie is really in a pickle, because there's nothing they can do.
𝘀𝗀 comes in with the flag and drag, flashes it over onto 𝘀𝗻, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Very excited there for low percentage play.
I know you. I mean, he burned the flash.
Fair enough.
I thought they were always going to follow up. He had the Cataclysm as well.
In the
they are moving it onto the Mundo. I mean, it's never happening, guys. He just rips his shirt off, and they're just intimidated by how much of a chat he is.
Yeah, this game is getting out of hand so quickly. Cerberus was just playing the least VCS style possible, just playing a very controlled game, going from lane to lane, looking for some opportunities here and there from through ego. This is the change Cerberus made and their players, right? Everyone else is still here, and everyone else was already a very good macro and team fighting team. Ego is the X Factor, and he's playing X Factor in this game as well. In the start, it didn't really go his way when he was first blooded by 𝘀cie, but ever since, he's the one making the plays happen. Everyone else on Cerberus knows how to move, how to position on the map. They're getting tower after tower after tower, and now it's a 4k gold lead, basically without any resistance from 𝘀cie, because their composition has missed the mark. They have missed the point where their drives are really strong. 𝘀𝗻 is behind on items, top lane is behind on items, and team fights are not feasible for them. They're just running away every time they see anyone. Yeah, you hit pun, but you don't want to fight against it.
Follow up. Do it. I dare you. This is a level 14 Mundo as well. Highest level in the game. I mean, you have to pray for a fight where you can ignore pun. He's never dying. As Ego comes on in with the Cataclysm, teleports are going to respond. 𝘀𝗀 has to flash over the wall. This could be a little bit too far here for Cerberus, but they will pick up that first kill. Diving into the backside is 𝘀𝗀, and here is 𝘀𝗻. He only gets one before they turn back around on him, though, and Pun is here. The Pun V9 is activated as Pundo moves into the backside. That will be the first kill picked up by 𝘀𝗀, then 𝘀𝗻, and finally, Pun and 𝘀𝗀 bearing down. 𝘀𝗀 tries to make himself a hero, takes down 𝘀𝗀, but is sent to the mat by the big boy wrestler.
This is why Cerberus is our best team. This is why they are looking to be the favorites, and this is also why they are still looking at the undefeated season in series. They know when to strike, they know when to move from slow and scaling game, from taking tower after tower, from focusing on objectives to teamfight. Flip the switch, flip the script, and just go for the teamfight. Ego initiates. Yeah, maybe a little bit over-aggressive, overzealous, but he has the stopwatch to wait for his targets. He dies, 𝘀𝗀 actually dies in the end, but it's a huge fight win for Cerberus. This is just solid team fighting front to back. They do have some issues with the range. You can see 𝘀𝐿ucian takes a long time to actually get into the fight, but at this point, you have so much front line. He can do whatever he wants.
If this game was closer, I think 𝘀𝗀 gets an ace here, because that was such a sick Leona ult.
I think 𝘀𝗀 actually did well to fight back here. They found some very good coordination between their players, but it's just too much frontline. Look at all these big tanky targets. Even Pun on 200 HP is still too tanky for anyone to kill him, so too many tanky targets. It's time for the emergency call. It's time for the Hail Mary Baron, and it's going down pretty quickly. Oh no, has 𝘀𝗀 given it away? Pun is chasing him off.
Yeah, but it's only 3k on it. That is just going to be a Baron picked up. 𝘀𝗀 will survive. There's the smite. I mean, it's a desperation play, but they get the buff.
Yeah, very nicely done. Just recognizing position from Cerberus and playing against any run of play that has happened in the last 20 minutes. Just completely offsetting the map. Getting this objective away from Cerberus is much more important than actually getting it for yourself. Doesn't even have an objective bounty, which is a little annoying, because they were close, probably, to getting the objective bounty there, but still, 300 gold for everyone on the team, a little bit more time to scale. They still have 2 dragons under their belt, so potentially now being able to move into 3-item territory for 𝘀𝗻𝗄, and the same goes for 𝘀𝗀 in about 5 minutes.
Yeah. And Yado now has been caught out, and there's a lot of CC being put into him. That's a shutdown given over to 𝘀𝗻𝗄. And this 𝘁𝗏, is she the ticket to the win? Or the potential ticket?
I mean, she has to be. I'm not sure if she can be. 𝘁𝗏 right now really not a hyper carry, in my opinion. She's much more focused on mid-game and assassinating people, but she is an auto-attacking champion, and every auto-attacking AD champion is going to scale exponentially with items, so she is going to hurt later on.
In comes 𝘁𝗶𝗆, 𝘁𝗏 gives him the boot, has to just jump onto Artemis to try and buy space for 𝘀𝗀, does that well. Now 𝘀𝗀 wants to move forward, has access to the 𝘁𝗶𝗆, but do you really want to fight Pun? This is so dangerous. They're in a 1v3. They are going to finally chip him down.
Well.
Mundo may well fall. He goes where he pleases, though, as they move back away. The kills are being picked up. BTS are melting away, 𝘀𝗀. Pun is back to full health.
And 𝘁𝗀, why are you fighting without your ADC? You just funneled all your gold into 𝘀𝗻𝗄, you used him to get Baron, you used him to get the shutdown, and then you'd fight without him. That makes no sense whatsoever. 𝘁𝗀 needs to be more structured with the way they play their games, especially in the mid and late game. In those teamfight approaches, it's a nice individual outplay from 𝘀𝗀, and he kept the fight close there with a lot of effort, but in the end, you will never win the situation without 𝘀𝗻𝗄 there. He's your main carry, he's your main damage dealer, he's the one to execute the targets. Just sad to see this from a player's team, but also we see the difference between the number 1 team and very likely the number 4 team. They're just not quite even.
I mean, honestly, I think all that this fight shows is, look, there's a good start there from Ego, but once Pun arrives, look, the man's on the gear. Investigate him for doping. You can't be doing this. He's on the roids.
1v3 this time around, and he tanks just way too much. You were actually thinking he was going to go down. No, look at his HP bar here. Oh, it's back to 2k. It's back to 3k. Ah, how nice. 𝘀𝗀 wishes he was a champion as grand as this one.
Oh my word. We come out of the replay with another fight brewing as Ego, you know, he's looking for an engage, and here comes Pun from Sky's base. Oh, no, they're going to call it off for a moment as 𝘀𝗀 will come in. They're using everything onto Pun, trying to take him down. He is going to go low. He is not going to go down. 𝘀𝗻𝗄 is going to charge forward, do a lot of damage. It's going to be the 2 kills there. There's the Mundo finally falling. They find a way to topple the Titan, and they move down the mid lane.
Artemis with a rare overstep on the 𝘀𝗀. He thought he was fine because Pun provided him with the front line, but Pun doesn't have any CC really to speak of, so the enemy team just walking past him and collapsing on Artemis. Can they finish the game here?
They certainly are going to try. Ego has to still get a recall. Never mind, they're going to call it off. Just get the inhib. I think that's sensible. I think if they keep going, 3 of them die.
And now we really have to talk about the possibility of a 2-0 for Sky. They're winning teamfights out of nowhere now. Their compositions are coming together, and this is what they're very good at. 𝘀𝗀 is just very... Look at all the tanky members on their side. Yes, you have Pun and 𝘀𝗀 on the other side, but you also have basically 4 melees with insane amounts of sustain and recovery in the teamfight for Sky. And all the while, the ADC is just flying around the battlefield. You can't really lock him down if you can't win against the 𝘁𝗏 in 1 second. So it's hard to fight this composition, and Cerberus has to be on the best behavior, which Artemis certainly didn't show, not using his cleanse, not using his flash, and dying very quickly in the fight.
Yeah, for sure. That's not quite good enough, and 𝘀𝗀𝗄 is well and truly online. I said, is the 𝘁𝗏 the ticket to a 2-0? Well, she certainly looks like it. The question is, will the train stay on the tracks? Will the BTS hype train continue to sail? Ego is going to be caught out there by 𝘀𝗀. Just gives him the message to leave. Dragon is up. Both teams would move to Soul Point if they can take this.
Very inconsequential Dragon, but it's enough to force a fight, and 𝘀𝗀 is here.
Yeah, they are moving in, but look at all the damage going in. This is the owner roll. It's not actually ideal, and now they've got to find to actually activate this one. The 𝘁𝗏𝗃 has gone down. It's an absolute disaster there for BTS. Can they actually fight this one out? The health bars are anemic your way for both of the teams. There it is. The Renekton actually picks up a double kill. They've got to deal with Pun, but when he has no team, he's not as scary. He has to go away. This is going to be 𝘁 moving to Soul Point.
Once again, Artemis dies. This time he used his summoner spells, but not enough to stay alive. This low-range ADC doesn't know how to conduct himself in teamfights against this bruiser composition on the other side. 𝘁𝗏𝗃 finds the engage. Eager continues there. Let's look at this again. It's very split, and I want to keep my eyes on 𝘁𝗏𝗃 because this time he died very quickly. There's way too much going on. It's 1v1 basically in the ADC department, and both of them die quickly. But what is this? No one can tell what's going on here. Just all the bruises on top of each other, using all their abilities, and slowly some people are dying, some are staying alive. More bruises for 𝘁, and they are also the bruiser composition team, so they are going to come out with the victory once again in the team fights. And the next few, I think we need to focus on Artemis even more than before, because he is the main damage, the main DPS for his team, and so far he's dying too quickly in the fights.
Oh, you'll have an Artemis focus during a Cerberus game. Daring today, aren't we? As 𝘁𝗏𝗃 has to dash away. They are going to try and turn around. Baron has been secured. The Leona ult gets a whole lot of nothing. 𝘁𝗏𝗃 managing to break the ethereal chain, but 𝘁𝗏𝗃 is 1v3. There's a culling ripped in. 𝘁𝗏𝗃's going to go low. 𝘁𝗏𝗃 will go down to that Lucian. Pun on the other side is in that 1v2, managing to do well in it as well. As 𝘁𝗏𝗃 pops the 𝘁𝗏𝗃 ult, he needs to try and find a way out of this one, but with the cleavers flying, he's infected your way. Pun is here. He's got a gun. He's going to take him down.
Too much focus on the Baron, but they do have the mid lane wave, so giving up a few kills isn't too bad for them. They secure another
he
Baron.
Is a gun. I just want to point it out. I meant to say he is a gun. Mundo does not have an assault rifle. I just want to put it out there.
Okay. Fair enough. But yes, 𝘁 actually walking away with another objective. Enemy team is forced to go back into their own base, so they can't really use their team fight to get any map positioning. And now the Baron is going to persist, which makes it easier to push, which makes it very easy to set up the next objective on the cards, on the horizon, which is going to be the Ocean Soul if 𝘁 secures it. Now, you know, I'm a hater of Ocean Soul. I think it's utterly worthless. So I don't actually think...
Don't worry, I'm on board.
I don't actually think this is going to really amount to much for 𝘁. It is going to help the bruiser composition in this case, because, yeah, all of them stay in fight for a long time. They sustain with the Ocean Soul ticks, so it's not one of those compositions where Ocean Soul does nothing. It's certainly valuable, but the enemy team is already investing into hero reduction, though, so I think if we go to objectives that secure the game victory, it has to be the Elder Dragon later on.
Yeah, look, Ocean Soul is certainly not going to win them the game. As you said, heal reduction is already being invested in. But an Alistar altered Sylas with Ocean Soul is pretty terrifying. 𝘁𝗏𝗃 is just going to dive in. This seems over-aggressive. The TP being used as well immediately into the bounce house. Up we go, down we go, up we go again. Cataclysm comes out. They do manage to turn around onto 𝘁𝗏𝗃. But look at what Season is doing in the backline. They forgot about the croc. And you can't forget a crocodile. He bites the jaws down. It's a triple kill for 𝘁𝗏𝗃. Quadra kill for 𝘁𝗏𝗃. They could try and go forward. This is the penta angle your way. He could get another one. He truly is the kings of it, but I don't think 𝘁 is going to mess with that. I don't blame them. Don't screw around. Don't go for the penta. Just get the base. They are going to come in. Cerberus 13-0. Make it 13-1 as BTS lock themselves into playoffs. What an absolute ridiculous performance.
How did they win this team fight so decisively? It looked horrible. They were split among the tower, and somehow Cerberus just died. One after the other. No one was close to even standing. It's a 4-0 ace to end the game from behind in goal. What an absolutely insane performance. This is the 𝘁 identity. This is the 𝘁 team fight. Cerberus did not respect it. They did not ban away the Kai'Sa. They did not ban away the Renekton. And this is what's going to happen to you. Now, Cerberus' perfect season is broken. Once again, we don't have the 14-0. It's the mystery, the mythic thing that's still to be accomplished, and Cerberus is not the team to do it.
No, they are not. BTS, welcome to playoffs. The organization has been around for a while, formerly 𝘁, of course, but now they will be going to a postseason. They deserve it. I've been saying that they are the fourth best team. They are the fourth best team. And with beating Cerberus, of course you're the fourth best team, at least. Now, I could talk for 20 minutes, but I have to go back to the analyst desk. 𝘀𝗋, you go, try and break things down with 𝘀𝗋 and 𝘀cie.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the VCS English Analyst Desk. As we now, reeling from the results of that game, we had an opportunity to see just an incredible performance out of BTS to be able to claim their playoff spot and beat the yet undefeated until this point Cerberus in what, at least in my opinion, it's humiliating fashion to lose at the very last doorstep of the game. 𝘀cie, ideas about that game? What happened?
I mean, Cerberus just got a little bit of a reality check there. I mean, 𝘀𝗀 is a very good 𝘁𝗏 player, apparently. And the game looked doomed in the mid-game, but it all came down to me, personally, was that Baron sneak by versus 𝘁𝗏 initially, where Cerberus went for the 𝘁𝗀𝗏, had their own jungler with them there, so there was no really a chance to really smite contest it if they happened to spot it out, and there was also no really a way to even go for a fight there, so versus 𝘁𝗏, snuff in, got the opportunity, got the game to stabilize a little bit more, so actually the 𝘁𝗏 could take over in the late game, and it looked rough, especially with the Renekton not really getting to scale anywhere, but also, like, 𝘁𝗏 is a champion that really spikes in the mid to late game here, and especially compared to Illusion without a Ohio champ on his side, the Illusion Nami was not coming out for him. It was the Alistar pick earlier, of course, and that was fine for me personally, but you just do not need to pick Illusion there. I mean, we addressed the Vayne earlier on, they addressed it themselves. Maybe that would have been a better choice there, or maybe a completely different AD carry to pick. And with that, I hope that reality check helps Cerberus later on. But I really liked what versus 𝘁𝗏 brought to us here.
I think it's quite important also to look at this again from Artemis being the star AD carry perspective, because this is really the quintessential way they like to play the bot lane with an engaged support and then a very individually isolated ADC, or just like with a lot of agency for himself. But in this case, Lucian just didn't have the range to work with. If you think Cerberus traditionally, you just think, okay, it's Caitlyn. And Caitlyn, Alistar would work much differently in this game, where Alistar has the liberty to go in all the time, and Caitlyn is safe enough, has enough range to just play and peel for herself. But Lucian, this game, just overcommitted over and over again, and Artemis actually looking out of sorts and completely lost on the battlefield compared to 𝘀𝗀𝗋. Died over and over again.
It was a really strange situation. It feels like 2 games in a row, there was a little bit of disconnect where Cerberus seemed to downplay a lot of Artemis's effect over the course of the game, and 𝘀𝗀𝗋, especially in game number 2, got a highlight and was kind of the focal point of that composition on the 𝘁𝗏 with everybody else. So it was a really weird position to be thrust into. It doesn't seem like Cerberus was playing at absolute max capacity. You have to think, coming into the last week, being undefeated to that point, you don't have that much pressure like you had said. And we talked about that potential of maybe the downshift, maybe the mental damage. We're not going to harp too much on the team that lost here. Instead, I want to talk about the potential for both 𝘁𝗏 to take this momentum into their next series. And the question posed to both of you, that Cerberus still have the number 1 pick. Nobody is swapping seeds, so we know their choice is between 𝘀𝗀𝗏 and 𝘁𝗏𝗏. After this, do you take 𝘁𝗏𝗏, even though they're the 4th seed, after they beat you, because you have all this information on them now, literally days before you play? Or do you take 𝘀𝗀𝗏 in that 2-0, in that play, who you have beaten twice this year, and you at least understand to some extent, even though, I mean, I think it was week 4 in like the second series of the week, where 𝘀𝗀𝗏 had that amazing game 1 that just kind of clowned them. What are your guys' opinions on selection for playoffs, since now everything has been locked in?
I think you still pick 𝘁𝗏𝗏.
Really? Interesting. I actually think...
Yes.
Why?
Why? I think it was more Cerberus beating Cerberus than 𝘁𝗏𝗏 beating Cerberus. In the late game, of course, this might just not do justice to what 𝘀𝗀𝗋 did in the later team fights, because he really played them well. Gotta give credit to him there, but I think if I would be Cerberus, I wouldn't feel too down on those two games personally. This was more of gathering information for them. Maybe I'm a little bit high on Cerberus 𝘁𝗶𝗹𝗀 there, because this team really won my heart over the split. But I think you still pick the, I wouldn't say objectively weaker team, but a team that they still showed that they can actually get great leads against 𝘁𝗏𝗏 even in this series, despite them losing 2-0 to them. So I wouldn't be too worried based on what happened just minutes earlier, and I would still pick the 4th seed here.
So my reasoning for actually going for 𝘀cie is, yes, 𝘀cie is on average the better team. They've showed that many, many times the split. They are just a little bit better than 𝘀𝗀_𝘀. Maybe not on current form, but they should be. But the matchup for Cerberus into 𝘀cie is very, very advantageous. They have 𝘁 against Artemis. That is a rift you just can't overcome as 𝘀cie. So more often than not, in the team fights, I think Cerberus is just going to auto-win because of ADC diff. Yes, the top side of 𝘀cie looks insane, but so does Cerberus's, right? So I think just looking at the matchup, the bot lane is almost unfeasible to win for the side of 𝘀cie, while 𝘀𝗀𝗀 have their niche compositions, their weird picks, their strange playstyle that all is uncomfortable to play against. You just lost against them 0-2. You can probably prepare for this style, right? Just ban away the Renekton, ban away the Kai'Sa, and then you win almost every game against 𝘀𝗀𝗀. But still, who knows what they've cooked up in the week, or what they can cook up in the next week. So I just go with the consistent team that might be a little bit better, but you also know you consistently can beat them, and your ADC is so much better than their ADC. So I'd actually now go 𝘀cie if I were Cerberus.
The scolding hot take in this case is that if both 𝘀cie and 𝘀𝗀𝗀 are some semblance of a jack-in-the-box, 𝘀 is a puzzle, and Cerberus can solve a puzzle, but they get a little terrified when it comes to when the jack-in-the-box pops out. So you take 𝘀 if you had the opportunity, especially because they were far more dominant against 𝘀, I think, in a lot of that, especially because 𝘀𝗀𝗀 is the only team that beat them. But that obviously is not an option. So yeah, this is an interesting little mind game that comes about from Cerberus, is deciding between 𝘀cie Esports and 𝘀𝗀𝗀 of who you end up with in that semifinals matchup. That's going to wrap our desk here. We'll be back in about an hour sometime, and now we're going to have a pregame desk. I think 𝘀𝗀𝗀's stepping out, so make sure to give him some love before he full takes off as we get into the final series of the split. This time, all for fun. Hopefully, we get a bunch of really crazy stuff, because that's going to make it a lot more entertaining between the side of 𝘀 Esports and Saigon Buffalo. Hopefully, it's going to be a barn burner, and we're going to get plenty to talk about. But until then, we will be back in about an hour. Stick around, and you're going to see our final game of the split.